Happy Monday, everybody. Thank you for joining me tonight. And guys, to everybody that was pre-gaming with me in the members only, did the redirect work or did you have to click a link? Put a one in the chat if the redirect worked, just so I know. Guys, did anybody watch this Shawn Ryan, Annie Jacobsen interview yet? I saw the first half. I didn't see the second half yet. But yeah, she talks about some crazy shit. A lot of it, basically the interview is about biological warfare. They get into all sorts of stuff. They get into the plague, they get into COVID, they get into Ebola. Yeah, a lot of scary stuff. Like I said, I watched the first half. I was fact checking some stuff along the way. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. So I want to just get right to it. I don't know why this was already supposed to be up, but here we go. And yeah, I'm going to start to about 30 minutes in when she starts talking. Actually, you know what? Let's start a little bit before that. When she starts talking about de-evolution.
I saw that. So a lot of questions here. So who determines who this is?
It is a pre-chosen, pre-designated list of people. Now, that list is classified. Who is on that list is classified. How that list is determined is classified. But I'm glad we're talking about this because let's speculate, because that's all we can do here. I would guess it certainly changes by administration, right? In other words, the current president is not going to have a bunch of former President Biden's designates go off and run the government. So then you really think about it like, wow, imagine being in that room, deciding, okay, who are going, essentially there's kind of like a mirror image person of every high ranking official, because you have to assume, okay, POTUS could get the airborne bacteria in his lungs and die. So who's going to be the Devolution POTUS, the national security advisor, the SecDef?
She's talking about right now measures that are in place in case there is like a catastrophic pandemic and God forbid something happens to the president. Like what are the measures that are going to go into place with who's going to run the government and how things are going to work?
Right. So all of these individuals, and by the way, it's not just Defense Department, it's health officials, it's, Supreme Court justices. The government has to run. So then, I mean, you have the eyebrow raising side that I had, which is, wow, that's a lot of plan. If there's that much planning that goes into catastrophe, why don't we have more public awareness about how to not have this happen?
We'll get into that discussion. So it's called de-evolution.
Devolution.
And we don't know how often. I mean, there's a lot of conspiracies on who really runs the government. They're running wild right now. They ran wild in the last administration as well. I mean, on probably every administration that comes.
Yeah. Most of us believe that they've been running pretty wild since World War II. I believe that. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know. It just appears that way. That after World War II, that the world really changed and not in a good way.
There'll be this question. Do you think there's a possibility that maybe they don't get picked? Maybe they're the ones that are running everything.
You mean the actual devolution is already in effect and taking care of things? I don't know. It's certainly an interesting thought experiment, I mean, I also think conspiracy theory is such a bad term. I think it should be changed to speculative narrative.
I love that.
Because, I mean, for example, when
I don't even think speculative narrative is a good term at this point because, I mean, guys, let's face it. The conspiracy theorists, it's been pretty much nothing but net for a couple of years now. Like, we've been getting proven right about I don't want to say everything because different people, there's a lot of conflicting conspiracy theories, but I mean, come on. Come on. You know what I mean? Like it's like, give me a break. Give me a break. And it still gets used as like this derogatory term for crazy people with tinfoil hats that just believe in like aliens at Roswell and Area 51. And we are like so far past all that preschool kindergarten bullshit. Like I don't gotta tell you guys, you already know.
COVID happened on top of the WHO and the CDC saying COVID not airborne when it was airborne. So they got the most basic, most important, most critical fact wrong. And
Isn't that crazy? The CDC saying that COVID was not airborne. Oh my God.
by the way, they've never admitted it. They just quietly changed the idea that COVID was airborne about a year later.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's that. And then there was the lab leak component of things, which separate from what you think about that.
Oh yeah, guys, we're getting right into it. We're getting right into the nitty gritty. I'm doing this episode like I don't give a damn about the algorithm. Like I don't care if I get any views.
Is a real possibility. Okay. And yet, when that was first reported, it was actually called a conspiracy theory by major news outlets. And we know it wasn't a conspiracy theory. So why not change that verbiage to speculative narrative? It just
You know what the big conspiracy theory, like the actual conspiracy theory, all jokes aside, when COVID happened? Well, I mean, aside from the big V, and that if you got the big V, that you wouldn't catch it, you wouldn't give it. But that's another story. All right. Well, that was the big conspiracy theory with COVID. But you know what the second biggest conspiracy theory with COVID was? The masks. The masks. Actually, yo, there were a bunch of conspiracy. What am I talking about? There was a lot of conspiracy theories with COVID. Not like what they say that we thought were conspiracy theories. I'm talking about the actual conspiracy theories. Like the one that it came from like eating a bat. Somebody ate a bat and then started spreading it. That was a conspiracy theory. Like
just takes everybody way down off the ledge. You can even say, if you're talking about, you can say it's a wildly speculative narrative. But to call something a conspiracy theory, I think, is such self-righteous indignation and so potentially dangerous, because once you say that, you have a really tough time walking it back and admitting you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
I mean,
why
the
I have
CIA
to change.
created that term, correct?
Conspiracy theory?
Didn't they?
I don't know that. I have heard many.
no, the term conspiracy theory was used in the late 1800s, but the CIA, they ended up pumping it into the propaganda around the time that JFK was assassinated. For anybody that questioned the narrative, they labeled them a conspiracy theory. And that word was like so rarely used before then that people actually thought that it was invented for the JFK assassination for the people that were questioning the narrative, because that's how rare the term was used before then. And then all of a sudden it's everywhere. Anybody who doesn't believe the narrative, if you didn't believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone shooter that shot JFK and that, Jack Ruby, just for whatever reason, took it on his own with no push whatsoever to just take him out, you are a conspiracy theorist.
Many different things. I think I would.
Or is that a speculative narrative?
Good. Look at that. We change the thinking and the way people talk right here and now on the Shawn Ryan Show podcast. But you know what I mean? It gives room for being wrong. There's something really, really character building about being able to keep yourself open to, I might be wrong about this. And I don't know why it has disappeared from the government. I just really don't know. I mean, there's a famous JFK quote after the Bay of Pigs, which was a failure. Okay. And JFK said something like, I'm paraphrasing, like, success has 1,000 fathers, failure is an orphan. And he was admitting his mistake in the Bay of Pigs, the CIA paramilitary attempt at invading Cuba that failed drastically.
Mhm.
He was admitting defeat. He was admitting being wrong. And I think that's profoundly important. It's part of all of our personal lives.
And it's so true too, because politicians, they never want to admit when they're wrong about something because they know that the other side is going to use it to attack them and it's going to be this whole big deal. But I mean, I feel like in 2026, after one shit show of an administration after another, and just all of the denial and all of the gaslighting, I feel like somebody like owning up to all their worst shit in politics would actually be a win. Like that would probably boost their approval rating. Unless of course they were in the files and they were doing some like really, really grimy shit. But like just talking about regular mistakes, whether it's a war, whether it's a piece of legislation, whatever it is. I feel like we just need that right now. Like the American people crave accountability so much that, it would be something to salute at this point. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if you guys agree with me. I know I feel that way. It's like I just want someone in the government to just be like, "Yeah, we fucked up." But not like the "we fucked up and we're not going to fix it." No, like the "we fucked up, we're taking accountability, we're going to make this one right." We just never see it. We just never see it. And it pisses me off so much with Trump because he's just always blaming Joe Biden. He's always blaming the Democrats. And it's just like, come on. And same thing with the Democrats. They're always blaming Trump. If you ask any liberal, Trump is like the end all be all big bad of the world and he's the cause for all their problems. And it's like, just stop. Just stop. Our whole government is fucked. I'm sorry for the language. I'm going to try to tone it down. But just give me this one last F-bomb because it's true. Our entire government and system as a whole is completely and utterly fucked. And we don't even know what the hell is going on. I don't even think that any of them really know what the hell is going on. Like to be totally honest, because our elected officials are not running things. Like they're just not. We know they're not. You have these bureaucrats, you have these intelligence agencies, you have these lobbyists, these donors, these foreigners that all seem to have way more power over our legislation and over our government and over our lives than the people that we actually elect, that we're supposed to be electing to represent us. And it's just like, how do we get here? You know what I mean? Like, just get us out. Just get us out. Just fix it. Just say you fucked up. Just say once upon a time, there was like a greater good. There was a light at the end of the tunnel and somebody took a left. There was a little corruption. There was one cover up. Then there was another mess up. Then there was another cover up. Like whatever it is, like just fix it. Just make America America again. Like, how about that?
Certainly mine. I mean, right? You got to be able to with your kids.
I do it all the time publicly. I've had to do it 2 or 3 times this year, unfortunately. But I think that's why we're in the big distrust era of the government and all of our
Yes.
institutions and pretty much everything right now. Is because nobody has been able to admit wrong. And the funny thing is it instantaneously reestablishes your credibility and even lifts it more because people realize, oh, this person actually has a moral compass. This person actually lives by a set of values.
Yes. And
which we can't say for anybody in government because they never do. They're too proud.
Except for Thomas Massey, because even though he got railroaded out of the primaries, he's still in office, at least for a couple more months. So at least we have one. At least we have one.
There's too much pride.
Pride goeth before the fall. I mean, I just think about pride is ego, or the unhealthy part of ego. Maybe the healthy part of ego is uncertainty, being able to say like, I don't know, but I think it's this. I still cannot, I could.
You know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to try not to interrupt too much going forward, but I have to interject here because it's not even pride. It's not pride. You think Ted Cruz is prideful? You think Marco Rubio has any pride? Like, are you kidding me? No, it's not pride. They want power. They want power. That and the fact that they're bent over by the deep state and the lobbyists and the donors and people I was referring to earlier, the people that actually run the world. It's not about pride. All right. Let's just correct that one right there, because that's bullshit. Maybe for some people, you know what I mean? Like maybe for Trump, it's pride. For him, yeah. But for most of these schmucks, no, they're just puppets. It's not about pride. It's about power. It's about control over us.
Could not get a straight. I'm always trying to get a straight answer from government officials on these certain questions like that, like asking the CDC, why have you never admitted you were wrong about, COVID not airborne? And they won't go there. So people mistrust.
You've asked them.
I always ask.
What do they say? Do they
I
just
mean,
avoid
usually
the
you get
question?
ignored on those questions, right? It's why I spend so much of my time interviewing former SecDef,
Mhm.
former Stratcom commander, former FEMA chief, because once they are out of government, they're really out of the catbird seat, which is kind of fair that when you are in a government position, you have to toe the party line. You can't really answer a straight question without going to 10 press officers and finding out what you're supposed to say. And maybe that, is understandable in some component, but
No, it's not understandable at all, because one of the biggest problems that we have in our government is that there's no transparency. Like she's basically justifying the fact that these people lie to our faces and don't tell the truth and aren't transparent and just push the agendas. Like towing the party line means willing to push the agenda, pushing the agendas forward. Like that's what that means. It's not understandable. That's part of the reason why we're in this mess to begin with.
it also should change because people, I think, are advancing way beyond that in their own personal lives. Just the ability to get information on your fingertips is just so much faster now than it ever was, that the government needs to adapt to that. We'll get back to you an answer on that. And then 6 weeks later, they're giving you the answer and the question has already changed.
What else about this devolution?
I mean, it was,
Was that a surprise to you?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've heard that term referenced, but it's always, it's referenced without any information attached to it because it's the only thing that's declassified. I was really kind of stunned that Craig Fugate was able to really share with me what he did, because he signed off on the 2016 version of it, the last day of the Obama administration. And that is,
And I got to say, because I like this girl, she is a very good talker. She's got a really great voice. It's a very comforting voice. She has a lot of good information, but I don't know. You guys tell me, because at some point throughout this interview, I feel like there's a little bit of propaganda being peddled. Not even saying whether or not it's wrong or right. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. We'll keep watching, and you guys tell me if you see it too.
is the set of protocols from which all updates are made. So the system hasn't changed. The names on the list might. But there are other really, really interesting details I learned. Like, okay, again, spoiler alert, right? The president gets moved in the event of a major biological catastrophe where there is a pathogen that has a case fatality rate of 100%. I told you COVID had 1%. Plague, not bubonic plague, but pneumonic plague, which is pneumonia, so in the lungs. When plague goes into the lungs, not bubonic plague, if you get bitten by a tick, you get bubonic plague. Your lymph nodes swell up and
Great. Another disease we got to worry about with ticks. First it was just Lyme disease. Then it was alpha-gal syndrome. You get allergic to red meat. Now they're saying you got to be worried about the bubonic plague. Yeah, yeah, you know, why the hell not? Why the hell not? And now she's talking about the whatever, the other one, pneumonic plague, which is basically like it seems like a really, really, really bad case of pneumonia. But she says 100% mortality rate. Now that one I had to look up because you know, you guys know me with the probabilities. You say 100%, like that's pretty wild. So I looked this one up, and it says because I saw another. Actually, do I have the other video here? Yeah. So first I was looking at these other videos, and they were like talking about it like it's not that bad. I'm like, whoa, that doesn't make sense because this woman's saying you get it, you're kirked. But listen to this doctor.
Pneumonic plague is a lung disease of the same bacteria. So you can get it. It can be spread from the bubonic plague and spread through the bloodstream into the lungs, or you can actually inhale droplets with the bacteria in it, and so you can get a primary seeding of the pneumonic plague as well.
Humans usually get the plague after being bitten by a rodent's flea that is carrying the plague, or after handling an animal that has been infected.
Definitely on rodents, and it's on the flea.
Sorry that the audio's a little low. There's nothing I could do about it. But it's just this one video, just another minute left. But that's scary out there that there's fleas in America that got the plague.
The flea is what carries the plague that is living on the rodent.
And to protect your pet, make sure to give them flea medicine. Do not allow them to roam prairie dog colonies, and take them to the vet if they seem sick.
What you're trying to do is cut down on the number of fleas. Whether they're infected or not, it's always a good idea. There's shampoos, there's flea baths. Check with your veterinarian.
All right, that's great. There's another video on this.
County resident died from the pneumonic plague in a Flagstaff emergency room. Health officials
Where somebody died. There's about 7 cases throughout the United States. The chances are extremely low. This is like the first case in like 2 decades where somebody died. There's about 7 cases throughout the United States per year.
Okay.
Okay, so remember, it's a bacteria. It hangs out on rodents, and then
So there's 7 cases per year on average of the pneumonic plague. That's wild. I did not know that.
enough. You get a flea bite. Okay, so if you wear protection against that, it's very less likely that you get it. Sometimes there's a dead animal from the plague, and if you have close contact with that. So stay away from dead animals, try to avoid the flea bites. It's only in the Western United States, so it's very, very, very rare.
Okay, that should be comforting for a lot of folks. Still hearing about it, I think normally, you know, most people just feel like a little worried about it. You talked about dead animal, a bite. What about feces from an animal that might be infected?
Not necessarily, no, unless there's fleas on top of it. And the thing that hurts us as doctors is that it presents like everything else. You have a headache, fever, chills, cough. Okay, but the thing
Those are the main symptoms.
Those are the main symptoms, right? But the thing that's a little different is they call it the bubonic plague because your lymph nodes kind of really swell up and they get black and blue. And that's the key to say, hey, this is what they have. So once you see those, it's pretty easy to make the diagnosis.
Okay.
We look for that. It does get treated with antibiotics if you catch it early enough. Again, it's extremely, extremely rare.
And what is, real quickly, what is if you are treated with an antibiotic, usually everything would be fine?
Yes, especially if you just have the skin form. There's 3 different forms. This person was a little unlucky. They happened to get the worst form, which is the pneumonic one, which kind of attacks your lungs. There was a case of person to person getting it, meaning like I have it and I give it to you. But the last case, that was 1924, where a person gave it to another person.
All right, so basically, after seeing this video, I'm like, all right, well, you know, these people on the news, they're not talking about it like you get it, you're automatically dead. So, like, what's the truth? So, here we go. So it says the real day-to-day timeline. Day 1, the initial phase. The patient experiences a sudden onset of generic flu-like symptoms. This includes a sudden high fever, headache, chills, weakness. Because it looks like a standard respiratory virus, people often dismiss it. Day 2, the respiratory phase. The bacteria multiply exponentially in the lungs, causing localized tissue death, necrosis. The patient develops a severe productive cough, intense chest pain, shortness of breath, and begins coughing up watery, bloody mucus. Then you got day 3 and 4, the terminal phase. The lungs experience total respiratory failure. The bacteria spills directly into the bloodstream, resulting in a widespread organ failure, massive internal bleeding, cardiovascular shock, and death. All right, that sounds pretty bad. But it basically says that as long as you get antibiotics within the first day or two, that you'll probably be okay. So, I mean, at least that's good to know. But when she says 100%, death rate, that's really scary. But again, if you get antibiotics within the first day or so, you're usually okay. And 7 people a year on average get this in the country. And as the other guy was saying, that it's pretty much mostly on the West Coast. So, just got to fact check these things. I hear somebody say 100%. I got to look into it.
It sort of takes over parts of the body, your lymph system. Pneumonic plague in the lungs, 100% case fatality rate.
100%.
100%.
It's actually not 100% though, because there have been people that have gotten it and survived without the antibiotics. So 99%. I mean, she likes the rounds, but she's putting a little emphasis on the rounding. Probably to help sell the book.
You get it, you die. Unless you take antibiotics.
Now we go. There we go.
You have to take antibiotics within 24 hours. Within 24 hours. By the way, I have one of my major sources on the book is
again, slight exaggerations, but not too far off from the truth.
One of the world's experts on bubonic plague, pneumonic plague, Dr. Henry Hine. He was at USAMRIID, which is at Fort Detrick, studying this for a very long time until he left. Now he works privately. So all of this information is fully sourced. But the big fear, I'm looping back to the president here, big fear of Defense Department, CDC, HHS, all of these organizations would be involved in a bio event. A pathogen is released, either a lab leak or an attack. It's airborne, and it has a case fatality rate of 100%. Okay. Then I said the medical countermeasures. How are we going to stop it? Well, what if it has been genetically modified to defeat antibiotics?
So she's basically saying COVID, if COVID was really dangerous for healthy people. Obviously, COVID was dangerous for, the elderly, the overweight, the people whose immune systems were already compromised. But if you were young or middle-aged and in good health, you were more than likely okay. But she's talking about a scenario where there's a potential lab leak with one of these gain-of-function diseases that's like a plague, and then starts wiping us all out. I'm sure Shawn Ryan was enjoyed this interview so much.
Again, sounds like Annie's talking science fiction. There are plans in place because this is what is feared.
I'm sure there are.
In this event, the president, I learned, this is sometimes you get information and you go, I got to reverse engineer my book from that because this is just too dramatic. The president does not get moved to a big bunker like Raven Rock or Mount Weather. Any of these command centers we can talk about if you want more details. He gets moved to what's called a cold site, really far away by himself. It's such a crazy visual to think about the president of the United States with a gas mask by himself in a room. His military aide with the nuclear football outside the door, and a couple Secret Service agents watching the building. For how long? I mean, that to me sounds like science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
To realize it's science fact is
she's got some pretty good slogans. That to me sounds like science fiction, but it's science fact. You know what I mean? Oh man.
I got to know about this. And that's how I work as a reporter. Okay, so how does that happen?
She's asking Shawn Ryan like he knows.
Are there,
That's the end of democracy.
I'd like to go back a little bit and talk about maybe the biological arms race
Mhm.
before we get to
Yep.
this, but it'll be a rise of, I mean, who do they think they're going to even govern? You know, I mean, the trillionaires that are building, the billionaires and trillionaire that are building bunkers in Hawaii. What are they going to do? Come out of your bunker and do what? Like, what, are you
Who's
going to govern
left?
Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg? I don't think so.
Who's
They're not being governed right now.
and you got to think of this.
Oh, Shawn Ryan popping shots with his hat and his glasses. He says they're not being governed right now. He's getting a little feisty.
Skills you have to survive in that kind of a world. Okay, so biological arms race. Here's an interesting fact. Biological war is
Wait. Hold on. Annie, is this a regular fact? Or is this, what did she say before? There's science fiction and science facts.
illegal. Biological weapons are illegal. Nuclear weapons are not illegal. Crazy thought. Okay. There's only a certain amount of countries that have them, and they're making sure no one else gets them, hence Iran. But nuclear weapons are not illegal to those who hold them.
Mm-hmm.
Biological weapons.
You know why they added the to those who hold them part, right? Yeah, I can't help myself. Oh my God. Because, their countries aren't supposed to have them. But once they do, like certain countries, then what are you going to do? They already have them. And sometimes they steal them from us. And then we still call them our greatest allies and try to merge intelligence. Why? So they can tell us how they stole them?
All biological weapons are illegal. They were made illegal by a treaty called the Biological Weapons Convention, the BWC, it's the treaty, in 1972. Before that, the United States had a massive arsenal of biological weapons, which is just crazy to think about. That's Cold War paranoia for you. We had them, Russia had them, China was building them, North Korea. So they became illegal. President Nixon decided they're repugnant to the conscience of mankind. That's what he said. Okay. And makes them illegal. Everyone saw we destroyed our biological weapons. It took 219 weeks to destroy them, by the way. So everybody says we're going to destroy our weapons, biological weapons. Everybody signs the treaty. Not for another 20 years would the United States learn from Soviet defector scientists that the Russians went like this. Oh, yeah, here we signed that treaty. And then they began to build a colossal biological weapons program.
All right. Now, a couple of things. Remember before when I was saying that, there's a couple parts that feels like they're sprinkling a little propaganda. You know what I mean? So she's saying that all the powerful nations of the world agreed that biological weapons were bad and that we should get rid of them all. And that America spent about 4 years, took them 4 years to destroy all of their biological weapons. And then they found out later that the Soviets were still had them, that they were still working on them. Now, listen, I'm not questioning whether or not the Soviets had biological weapons or were planning to or whatever. But what I am questioning is this idea that America really got rid of all of theirs. I mean, who knows? Maybe they did. But I just, I'm sure they said they did. But do you guys really think that America got rid of all their biological weapons? Especially if they had any reason to believe that another country would still have them. And why would they believe the Soviets? Why would they believe China? It just seems a little silly to me. Because think about it. If they had that type of trust, if America and China and Russia and all these powerful nations really had that type of trust when it came to the biological weapons, why wouldn't they have just gotten rid of the nuclear ones too? You know what I mean? Nuclear weapons are just as devastating. If they have the trust and they believe okay, we're all going to agree and get rid of our biological weapons, why wouldn't they just do the same with the nukes? Just get rid of all of it. I don't know. Maybe that's just my opinion. I'm going to get right back to this in a second. I saw a big super chat in there. I know I got a couple of them. Let's read them real quick and then we'll continue. We got Favrick, $10. Thank you very much. Heck yeah. Tonight we ride. Glad your hard work is getting its flowers, buddy. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Is that Favrick or Favrick? B. I don't know. You got to tell me. My enunciation is so terrible. I hear it all the time. Teresa, 440 gems. Uncle Alert, thank you very much. We got Dale, $10. Thank you very much. Wait, I'm so confused. Aren't we supposed to be fearing hantavirus and explosive buttworms? Oh, and alpha-gal? Yeah, I mean, look, there's just a lot of things to be afraid of, apparently. Like, it seems like every other week it's something else. And don't forget about Ebola and Zika, and, you know, COVID is still a thing, apparently, allegedly. I don't know. But we're gonna keep getting into this video. Big super chat, Destroy the Blob, $50. Thank you very much. Plug for Matt Campbell, crowdfunding for UK inquest in his brother's death on 9/11. Please donate. I'm helping FBI whistleblower Sibel Edmonds get her testimony on record. This is an opportunity that was blocked in the U.S. by the state secrets privilege. All right. If you have a link or something that you want to give me, let me know. And also be sure to share it in my Discord. Thank you very much, buddy. Appreciate it. And I appreciate you raising awareness. All right, but let's get back to it.
They called it their Manhattan Project. And the idea, which is so spooky, is that they wanted to kill all the people in America and the West and leave the infrastructure intact. Those were their words.
Interesting.
Those were their words. Did you hear it yourself? She's saying that Soviet defectors said that after this agreement where the Soviets and the US and China all trusted each other and destroyed all of their biological weapons, that the Soviets were secretly still plotting to wipe out the American population with biological weapons and leave their infrastructure intact. From their mouths. I don't know if it was to her ears, but this one I got to look up. All right, so let's see. Hold on. All right. What is strongly documented? The Soviet program deliberately developed or pursued antibiotic-resistant versions of major biological warfare agents, including plague, anthrax. I'm not pronouncing that one right. Tularemia. Does that sound close enough? All right. Glanders. Alibek stated the program developed antibiotic-resistant strains during the 1980s and described its objective as moving towards absolute biological weapon agents designed to defeat available treatment and defenses. A Congressional Research Service report likewise described the former Soviet program as possessing genetically altered antibiotic-resistant pathogens and sophisticated delivery systems across roughly 50 biological research and production centers. Pasachnik's 1989 defection was especially important because he reportedly disclosed work on a genetically engineered strain of Yersinia pestis, the bacterium that caused plague, made resistance to antibiotics. His information helped prompt British and American pressure for access to Soviet facilities. Modern historical reviews also confirm Soviet offensive anthrax development involving antibiotic-resistant strains. Was the goal to counter antibiotics? That portion is substantially accurate, though the clearest phrasing is the Soviets worked to make biological agents resistant to antibiotics so that standard medical treatment would be ineffective. They were not creating one generic weapon that countered antibiotics. They were engineering individual bacterial agents to withstand drugs that would ordinarily treat them. The program also reportedly pursued resistance to vaccines, resistance to environmental stresses, increased virulence, unusual disease symptoms, suppression or disruption of immune responses. The congressional testimony specifically described plans for antibiotic resistance or immunosuppressive variants. Was it intended to kill all of America? Now, this is the big question. This is the one that I want to know. Did the Soviets do this with the intention to wipe out the American population and leave the infrastructure intact, as stated by Annie Jacobsen? Let's see. The exact formulation is too strong based on public documentation I found. The Soviet program undeniably treated the United States and NATO population centers as strategic targets. Soviet doctrine included biological attacks against major cities using agents such as plagues and smallpox, and the program developed delivery systems intended for bombs, aircraft, and missiles. Historical reconstructions describe scenarios capable of causing enormous urban casualties. However, I did not find a reliable primary source in which Soviet scientists said we created a weapon that would kill every American, or an official plan literally designed to exterminate the entire U.S. population. Well, that's good news. If Annie Jacobsen is going to be wrong about one thing, I would hope that it would be the genocide of the United States, because, I mean, that would be terrible. The more supportable formulation is Soviet scientists disclosed a strategic program designed to produce treatment-resistant biological weapons capable of causing mass casualties in American and NATO cities. Kill all of America is likely Annie Jacobsen compressing the strategic objective and potential scale into dramatic language rather than quoting a documented operational order. How large and serious was the program? The broad historical records support that Biopreparat was probably the largest known offensive biological weapons enterprise, tens of thousands of personnel, dozens of facilities, industrial scale production capacity, strategic and battlefield agents, anti-crop and anti-livestock weapons, genetic modifications programs, aerosol and missile delivery research. The Soviet government concealed the program while publicly complying with the Biological Weapons Convention. Details emerged through defectors, facility inspections, Western intelligence, and Boris Yeltsin's later admission that an offensive program had existed. Reliability of the witness. I'm not going to sit here trying to pronounce their names, but Vladimir Pesechnik. His disclosure were treated seriously by British and American intelligence and contributed directly to diplomatic pressure and inspections. He is a central source for the antibiotic resistance plague claim. Ken Alibek held an extremely senior position and supplied a large volume of information, later corroborated in broad outline by other evidence. His account of the program's scale, structure, and antibiotic resistance agents is widely cited. However, some of his later claims, especially about Iraq, exotic pathogens, and certain biomedical ideas, were disputed or proved unreliable. That does not invalidate his entire account, but his more dramatic claims should be independently corroborated. Sergei Popov described genetic engineering projects intended to make known pathogens behave in novel ways, including manipulating immune responses. His testimony supports the broader claim that Soviet researchers were attempting more than traditional weaponization. All right, so here's the fact check verdict. The claim: Soviet scientists later exposed a covert biological weapons program. That is true. The program engineered pathogens to resist antibiotics. Also true. Plague, anthrax, other word I can't pronounce, glanders, were among the agents. That is well documented. The program sought weapons that could defeat treatment and vaccines. It says supported. American cities were intended strategic targets. Also supported. Scientists created one weapon guaranteed to kill every American. Not documented. A Soviet scientist explicitly said the goal was to kill all of America. Not verified. So, in conclusion, the safest way to present it on your live would be Annie Jacobsen is correct that Soviet defectors revealed a program developing antibiotic-resistant biological agents for mass casualty warfare against the United States and NATO. but the phrase kill all of America appears to be rhetorical shorthand. I have not found a primary source proving a literal extermination plan or a weapon capable of killing every American. All right, guys. So, maybe we could sleep a little better at night. I don't know. Critter, thank you for the gifted membership. I appreciate you. Death, member for 4 months. I fear our own American government more than any foreign threats. You know what? Me too, pal. Me too. And we got American Discourse News in the chat. Anything they say Russia is doing, it's our greatest ally. That's my new read. LOL. You know what? You might be right there. You might be right. And anything that they're saying that another government is going to do to us, I fear that our government is going to do to us and blame the other government so that they could blow them up. That's my own insecurity bleeding out while I listen to this interview.
Smart and interesting and evil. I mean, we were talking about Ancestry.com, 23andMe.
Yeah.
Who knows what else is out there that people are using. But
speaking of our not so greatest ally, didn't they get all the information for 23andMe? I don't know. We got to fact check that one.
I mean, when you say an arsenal of biological, how many different types of biological weapons do you need? Can they? I mean, I'm sure they can. I mean, can they engine, by sucking that DNA out, or LabCorp, the
Whoa.
biggest-
Shawn Ryan, this is a family show. What are you doing talking about sucking DNA out? Come on, bro. I thought with the hat and the glasses on today that you were going to be a little more respectful than that, and especially in front of a lady.
blood diagnostics
Right.
company in the world. I mean, can they get that information, hack that information, or just sell it? I mean, I think 23andMe and Ancestry and probably all the other ones have sold all the data multiple times, allegedly. But is it possible to create a biological weapon that would only target American DNA, Canadian DNA, North American DNA, Latino DNA?
Yo, I've been saying this for a while. I don't know if you guys saw the last James Bond movie, the one with Remy Malek as the bad guy, but that was like the whole plot of the movie, is that there was a terrorist out there that had a government program. They had that the MI6 or whatever had scientists that were working on a virus with nanotech that they were able to code and target people based on their DNA. So they could get somebody on the individual level. They could get their relatives. They could get them by their race or ethnicity. And yeah, I saw that movie and I'm like, this is probably something that America is working on. And I hope it never happens because it would be catastrophic. I mean, think about it. If there was any specific group of people that could just put something out into the world where it's like, okay, everybody but us, like everybody but the names in the list of our little computer here are going to get this and they're going to drop. That would be terrible. And there are probably a lot of really, really evil, sick, powerful people in the world that if they had that type of technology, they would probably use it at least to some extent.
DNA, black DNA,
Yeah.
any race.
There is. And that, by the way, this is not something I get into in the book. It was a little too speculative narrative for me.
Guys, we were talking about playing the game before where every time Annie references her book or writing that you would take a shot of water, of course, because I don't advocate for alcohol consumption. But I know there's a couple of you wine moms out there. And trust me, if you're taking shots of wine, you listen to this whole interview, you're still going to get hammered. ADN says Einstein was too obsessed with DNA for something nefarious not to be happening there. And yes, as you said before, I concur. We got another super chat from Dale, $10. Thank you very much. Wait, I'm even more confused now. Russia? I thought we were afraid of China and all the brown people. Oh no, I'm going to implode from all of this fear mongering. Yeah. Apparently you have to be afraid of everybody. that's like the moral of the story. That if there's people in power, if there's a government out there that has scientists, they might be out to get you.
Me to really go down, okay? But let me tell you that was confirmed. I asked that exact question to Admiral Brett Drouar, and he was the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services at the White House during COVID.
Yo, is anybody else surprised, at least a little bit, how this woman, especially when they know that she's writing all these books, is able to get interviews, and so many people from the CDC, from the White House, from administrations, she's getting all these people that are in the know on the record to give her all these juicy details. You know, like, I don't know. Nothing against Annie. Like I said, I love her. She does great work. I love her voice. I love her delivery. She might exaggerate a little bit at times, but she may be a victim of at least some level of misinformation and propagandizing. She just might. I mean, think about it. Why would all these people want to talk to a writer unless they wanted the stuff they were saying to be written about? And if you are part of the administration or part of any government and you're towing the party line, so to speak, and you are speaking to a journalist that you know is going to be writing a book, don't you think that there's a chance that maybe, just maybe, they're going to like give you their spin so that, you know, you write what they want you to write? Just saying. I think it's a fair question. And again, I love Annie Jacobsen. It's not an attack on her whatsoever, but you would think that she would like drop these disclaimers along the way instead of, you know, speaking in such definitive terms and saying 100% this and definitely that. And this is the truth. And it came out of his mouth. It's like, I gotta take some of this stuff with a little bit of a grain of salt.
Okay. He's also a medical doctor. He ran DARPA's bioscience office. He's an incredible human being. He's a character in the book for sure. I mean, he's really a remarkable person. You know, grew up in a small town in Texas, first guy in his town to go to Harvard, you know, fully dedicated to service his whole life.
I mean, she's even given all the like the hero origin story talk. It's like, you know, like I want to hear her talk about one of these people and be like, yeah, you know, he told me this, but you know, you got to take it where it's coming from. You know, he's working for Trump. He's working like, you know, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. It's like, no, she's like, he's a hero. He's been dedicated his entire life. These words came out of his own mouth. It's 100% accurate. Okay, Annie.
I asked him that question and he said to me after a bit of a pause, yes. And there are suspicions that China is doing that. So the suspicions part of it is where I make a distinction for Annie as a journalist. I'm going to.
And that's like the second or third time I heard her use, you know, like speak in the third person. Like, you know what I mean? Annie as a journalist is going to get to the bottom of this. Annie the journalist is going to tell you all about her book. Annie as a journalist wants you to think that it's all Russia's fault.
Work my scenario from what is known, what is on the record, and what has been confirmed by people on the other side, because then I can never be accused of like fearmongering. Like if I were to go down that lane, perhaps people would say, well, you're fearmongering because it's speculative because you don't know for sure. Right now, when you have someone like Admiral Drouar saying it's speculative, the subtext in that, you and I can infer what that means. So I don't think someone like that is going to say something like that to me off the cuff without a little more fear, shall we say, than speculation.
So
she's saying that she doesn't think that anybody from the government is going to lie to her so that she'll take that information and do some sort of fear mongering or promote propaganda. You know, she's saying that he said it off of the cuff, so it has to be true. I don't know. I'm just glad that Shawn Ryan's got his glasses on so he can see through some of this bullshit.
Speculative rumors that China is creating this or has
Yes.
created.
Yes. And there's
I've never
also,
been so happy to have Asian blood.
yes. Really? How is that? How, you got to tell me that. How is that?
Because I'm part Japanese.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm good.
I never knew that. Mom or dad?
Dad.
Dad. Interesting. Okay, so you got the DNA immunity, perhaps,
Yeah,
if that's the
hopefully,
case.
Hopefully.
There's a very interesting paper for anyone who's interested in reading on this. So Dr. Robert Cadlick, source in the book, he is now the current administration, essentially the biodefense chief. He was dedicated to
Dr. Robert Cadlick. Remember that name if you don't know it already, because that one is pretty important. He has been a big player in all of this bio warfare, preventative measure business in government for a couple of decades now. He is actually the one, I think, responsible for or played a major role in Operation Warp Speed. If you're not familiar with Operation Warp Speed, that was the government's operation for the development, manufacturing, and distribution of the, wait for it, COVID-19 vaccine. Just saying.
biodefense, starting in the Bush administration, has had huge, powerful jobs across every administration.
Yeah, Annie's got to trust him. He started in the Bush administration after 9/11. Yeah, why wouldn't you trust him?
He actually ran Operation Warp Speed during
he ran
COVID,
Operation
which
Warp
was the
Speed. There
vaccine
we go.
program. He's an Air Force colonel and a medical doctor, and he's now the current president's biodefense chief. So he, we had conversation before, and then when you go back into the administration, you can't really talk to a journalist like me.
Mhm.
But
Yo, like she keeps pointing that out too. Like she knows exactly when to catch these people. And these people will like work in the government for years and years and years, and then they'll take a year off. And then they'll be allowed to talk to Annie. And Annie will write a book about everything that they're saying and go, hit all the podcasts like Shawn Ryan and Joe Rogan and talk about all this stuff. And listen, I like it, but maybe I'm just a skeptic. Maybe I'm just a little too skeptical. I don't know. But I just find it very, very strange that all of these people talk to her and give her the dirt, especially when they know that she's going to write a book about it. There's no possible way that any of them are going to lie or spin it in any way. Why would they? They said it off the cuff.
right before going back into the administration, he wrote a paper on China's biological program. So the State Department speculates China has a bioweapons program. The State Department confirms that Russia has a bioweapons program. North Korea has a bioweapons program, according to the U.S. State Department. China, maybe. Iran, maybe. That's what they say.
Maybe.
They say
maybe Iran. All right, guys. Breaking news. Iran has maybe has a bioweapons program. Just like maybe they're working on building nuclear weapons. Yo, Pete Hegseth is probably creaming in his pants right now. Oh, gonna have to reset the war again over that one.
say maybe.
I mean, I'm sorry. What was the Wuhan lab?
So here's
Right, you tell her, Shawn
and again,
Ryan.
we're talking about language.
What about Ukraine?
We're talking about language.
Well, those
So
are our biolabs.
those were some of ours. So the position of the State Department is that the Russian biological program, I told you about that very evil program in the 70s and 80s, was absorbed, not dismantled. And so that is why they take the position Russia still has a program. And China, so this
Man, so what kind of America were some real suckers to get rid of all their biological weapons and programs. You know, because think about it. When they started this deal, when they had this trust between China, Russia, and America, and they all said they were going to disband their biological weapons and their biological weapons programs. And now we're finding out that Russia never actually dismantled theirs. And China has one. And maybe, just maybe, Iran does too. So America, you know, the fact that they were the one country that kept their word and got rid of all theirs, they ended up being some real suckers, according to Annie Jacobsen, of course.
This is how a diplomat would clarify, maybe, that the treaty I told you about.
Wait, hold on. Which diplomat told you how to clarify maybe? I mean, you name dropped 20 other people so far. You gotta tell us which diplomat you're talking to.
BWC, which everybody is supposed to adhere to, all the signatories, and not have bioweapons. There's a tiny go around, which is that you can do genetic engineering for defensive purposes.
Oh, now we're talking about what America's really doing. All right. So America got rid of all their bioweapons. They got rid of all their labs, but they found a loophole. They can do it for defensive purposes. I have a feeling that we're about to get into gain of function. Just saying.
For prophylactic purposes.
Mm.
And so that's where you get the Wuhan excuse, which is that we were modifying the coronavirus so that we would know how to defend against it. You see? So that
all right, so we had the Wuhan lab so that we can modify the coronavirus so that we could defend against it. Yeah, that worked out great.
that's the kind of catch-22. In plain language, I call it a hooky-do, which allows these BSL-4 labs, biosafety level 4, that's the highest level, guys in spacesuits, to manipulate viruses and pathogens in really dangerous ways so that in case somebody else uses it, we know how to defend against it. And that has its own longer conversation, and it's extremely dangerous. It's called gain of function. It's just like it sounds. You are trying to make a pathogen gain new function. Mentioned before, virulence, transmissibility, how do we catch it? Virulence, is it going to kill me and how fast? And is there a medical countermeasure? Those three components. Gain of function tweaks those. Okay, so let's make it more.
Yo, she's really breaking it down. She's really pushing this hard. Who do you think wrote her script? Anthony Fauci?
Or airborne. Let's make it from droplet transmission, which would be me coughing at you and you know, sorry for my spit hitting you. That's droplet transmission versus us talking, airborne, lingering in the air. Somebody else could walk in here after we leave. Airborne, it's still here. That
Annie Jacobsen rips ass, then leaves the interview, and Shawn Ryan still smells it.
that's the number one threat. You can, with gain of function genetic engineering, you can make a pathogen airborne. Whoa.
Whoa.
What are the different kinds? Do you know?
Of pathogens?
Of bioweapons.
Well,
Pathogens, bioweapons.
yeah, I mean, great question. And again, stuff we should know about, right? Because then we, the public, can react appropriately, as opposed to starting creating speculative narratives about what could happen. Ebola, for example, you know, the hantavirus, right? So the CDC keeps a list of what are called tier 1, common term, select agents. Those are the pathogens that they're most afraid will be weaponized. Subtext, have been weaponized in the past. They probably have speculative intelligence are being weaponized. Plague is one.
All right, hold on. Let's skip ahead a little bit.
When you're writing and doing this research, I mean, do you have you thought about if you were to create a bioweapon, what it would look like?
Me? I mean,
This is what
well,
I do. I've been thinking about it the entire conversation. I already know what
Okay.
I would do now.
tell me.
Have you?
Ha-
Have you thought
well,
about it?
I think about that. It's a fascinating question.
So wait, hold on. So Shawn Ryan is sitting here listening to Annie Jacobs, and he's like hypothesizing what type of bioweapon he would make. Yo! Oh my god. At least he said it out loud. That's pretty funny.
I think about that from the dramatic narrative point of view, working from what is scientifically possible. So that's why I chose pneumonic plague. And even more so, the reason why I chose pneumonic plague is for a very specific reason, that when the Soviet defectors finally revealed to the West what the Russians had been doing, and mind you, this is 30, 40 years ago when genetic engineering was not possible. They had created a super plague weapon, airborne, with plans to be genetically modified. This is early genetic engineering, like almost like imagine using scissors to cut film and taping it back together, as opposed to digital editing today. That would be the analogy of where things were. The Soviet scientists, by their own admittance, created a plague weapon that they had built in, they had genetically modified it to defeat antibiotics. And even worse, to actually trigger a new disease, encephalitis in the brain, once you take the antibiotic. And by the Russian scientists' own admittance, the reason they did that was because they hated America so much in the Cold War. Not only did they want to kill all the people and take the infrastructure, march in and just take.
All right, now listen, I'm not going to flat out call bullshit, but nothing of what she just said and is saying now came up in my research on this whole thing with the defectors that I read before. It says that they were working on antibiotic resistant drugs. Antibiotic resistant biological weapons, but it didn't say that like the antibiotics would trigger something worse. It just said that they wouldn't work. And again, it says that there's no documented evidence to prove or make anybody believe that their goal was to just wipe out America. Like this sounds like some deep state propaganda right now. I could be wrong. But like I said, in the words of our great FBI director, Kash Patel, there is no credible evidence that what Annie Jacobsen right now is saying is accurate. I'll repeat, there is no credible evidence that she is telling the truth.
Take everything, the buildings would be there, unlike in nuclear. But they wanted people to die with the last thought in their brain that the government had failed them, because
Well, I'll tell you this right now. If Russia really wants the last thought in Americans' brains when they die to think that their government failed them, well, they got what they wanted. And they didn't even have to make any biological weapons, because the majority of Americans, when they die, they do so believing that the American government has failed them. So, goals. The Russians, what can I say? It sounds like they're getting what they wanted.
Antibiotics that the American medical establishment and the government told Americans to take to defeat the plague weapon would kill them in an even more horrific way. This was their plan. This is on the books. This is documented. So to answer your question,
again, not on the books, not documented. Hold on, we got to get the transcript. She's just pushing it really, really hard right now. And if she's true, if she's telling the truth, then I'll give her the credit. But let's see. Hold on. Right now, live. Annie Jacobsen says you're wrong. Run a deep search and analysis into this portion of the transcript. We're gonna get to the bottom of this shit right now, once and for all. Let's see. Now I'm getting aggravated. Because if the Russians really do have a plan to wipe out the American people, I think we have the right to know. Damn, it's like we need Jeopardy music waiting for ChatGPT. Oh, it's searching. It's digging deep. DHS.gov, this.gov, medlink.com. It's searching everywhere. Somebody said Russia can't even beat Ukraine. Yeah, but then again, America can't even beat Iran. You know? Come on. We're calling balls and strikes here, people. Balls and strikes. Wow, it's still searching. Usually it doesn't take this long. You know what? I'm just gonna put that there and we'll just get back to it for now.
Question. I couldn't come up with anything more sinister than that myself. And I wanted to stick to science fact. And so that's the very specific pathogen that gets unleashed in Biological War Scenario, my book. And by the way,
guys, take a sip. She referenced the book again.
It's not a nefarious act, it's a lab leak.
Wow.
Shawn Ryan doesn't even know what to say. He's just doing the
you know,
wow. He knows she's full of shit.
I think what I would do is
I was gonna make a joke just now, but it's gonna be interpreted the wrong way by haters, so I'm not even gonna say it. I'll say half of it. You know, Shawn Ryan's phone was blowing up today. He had at least one person texting him saying that this girl's got it all wrong.
I would have stages. Maybe you do something that is an attention grabber, like COVID. Maybe you make a pathogen that targets the reproductive system, and then you get the news cycle going, and it's, oh, we can't, you know what I mean? Nobody in North America can reproduce anymore. But you have the antidote. You let the headlines percolate. This is why you're not reproducing, because I've created this. And if you want the antidote, then your government is going to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's something even quicker. You know, maybe it is something like COVID. If you want to get better, this is what you're going to do. If you try to nuke us, you won't get the antidote. So this is what's going to happen. If you don't listen, then we're going to go to the next step, and we're going to prove to you that it's real. And this is what's going to happen to your body. Then that happens. Then they know, you know, and then it just keeps escalating. If you want to save human life,
and
or give them the option to save themselves. That's how I would do it.
And that's a very sort of red teaming mind scenario, which is what war games at the Pentagon, from my understanding, are entirely based on, like getting people to think through those incredibly sinister ideas to try and have a plan in place to prevent that from happening. And so in my experience and learning about all this, what's interesting about this is that is all very valuable. And that's sort of,
oh, guys, guess what? ChatGPT said that we were correct to fact check them. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it did say, look at this. You were right to challenge my earlier answer. Annie Jacobsen's central technical claim is substantially grounded in documented testimony from former Soviet bioweapons scientist Sergei Popov. Oh, maybe she wasn't so full of shit after all. Let's find out. It's talking about the encephalitis. All right, so corrected fact check. Jacobsen's claim. The Soviets genetically engineered airborne plague to resist antibiotics and explored a mechanism in which antibiotic treatment would release another agent causing a fatal neurological illness. Verdict: substantially true and directly supported by Sergei Popov's testimony. Wow. Jacobsen's claim: the work was intended for strategic mass casualty use against the United States while preserving infrastructure. Verdict: broadly supported by Soviet doctrine and Albeck's congressional testimony. Oh, shit. Maybe I shouldn't have talked all that shit. I should have double checked my own work before I was critical. Fucking ChatGPT. Jacobsen's claim: the fully developed plague encephalitis weapon was completed, operational, and on the books. The verdict: the research program and design are documented. Public evidence of a completed stockpiled operational weapon is less conclusive. Jacobsen's claim: scientists admitted the specific purpose was hatred of America and ensuring victims died believing their government had betrayed them. Verdict: not independently verified from the accessible Popov Albeck congressional or historical sources I reviewed. The best formulation for your live stream: Annie Jacobsen was not inventing the antibiotic-triggered second disease. Former Soviet bioweapons scientist Sergei Popov publicly described research involving plague bacteria carrying a hidden virus that could be released when the antibiotics destroyed the bacteria, causing a second disease, such as encephalitis, after the plague appeared to be treated. What remains less clearly documented is whether the exact weapon became fully operational and whether the Soviet scientists explicitly described their motive in the psychological terms Jacobsen used. So the correction to my earlier answer is clear. The antibiotic-triggered neurological double agent concept is documented. The unresolved portion is the weapon's final operational status and Jacobsen's specific account of the scientist's emotional motive. All right, guys, the plot thickens. I'm sorry, Annie Jacobsen. I'm sorry I doubted you, but you're coming off a little over the top, and you seem to be pushing some propaganda.
Historical red teaming and wargaming. But what has been left out of the discussion are two major components, which is one, how fast science and technology are moving. So you can't possibly keep up with it. Although yours did agree, the 3-stage thing is like really sinister and, very scientific.
Well, it also gives them the option to save themselves.
Explain to me that a little bit more on the third part of it.
On my plan?
Yeah.
My plan is you get the attention.
Okay.
Everybody knows something's up. Then you take credit for what's happening.
Okay. This is the bad guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
is the bad guy. Or the good guy.
Okay.
I mean, maybe there is genocide going on somewhere in the world,
Okay.
like we see all over right now, right? And then the country that's committing genocide gets a pathogen. It makes their people sick. They're not dying. Maybe some die, you know what I mean? But it grabs that nation's headlines. And then you make the statement, if you don't want this to continue, you stop the genocide right now. If the genocide continues, then we'll move to stage 2. Stage 2 is you bleed out of every orifice in your body.
Yo, is Shawn Ryan sitting here like playing pretend that he's like some sort of dictator or government leader who's just hit somebody with a bioweapon and he's given his demands? Is that really what he's doing right now? That's the game they're playing? Yeah, this guy's great. And you know what? Annie Jacobsen's great too. I'm having fun. I thought that she was wrong on this because of looking it up, but at least I took the time to double check the facts when it got to the part that I had originally gotten information that was contradicting her statements. But yeah, upon double checking, there's a little more meat on that bone than I thought.
Would you like that to happen? Yes or no?
Mhm.
You have 2 hours.
Mhm.
Oh my
And
God,
this
Shawn Ryan's
is
2
giving
hours goes
deadlines.
by. They don't do it. The next pathogen is released. It's already staged. It stops. They get the antidote. That gets released.
Mhm. These are some of the hallmarks of early biological warfare thinking, with another component mixed in, which is that you would need to inoculate, give a vaccine essentially to your own people that would be anywhere near that area to make sure they didn't.
Well, that's
Okay.
dependent if you know,
Yeah.
if you target a certain race of people that all share a common
Mhm.
strand of DNA.
Yes, and this is exactly what that Cold War mentality was, by the way, right? It was really, it's almost like mental, hostage taking, essentially, on a grand scale. And then the conclusion by pretty much everyone involved was the blowback idea, was that you couldn't contain it because the pathogen would have to be contagious to be, really effective. And then you would have these concentric circles of people getting sick. So that's where kind of biological warfare became obsolete in terms of thinking.
Mhm.
And that's why they made it illegal. But people still think about that. And now, with scientific advancements, with genetic engineering, being able to target individual people is becoming much more of a reality. And by the way, that's what I meant to say.
Yo, I'm telling you guys, if you haven't seen the movie yet, whether or not you're a James Bond fan, check out No Time to Die. It's a really good movie, and like I said, that's like the whole plot is like a biological weapon like this. Really scary stuff.
In Dr. Cadlick's paper, he's the current biodefense chief. There's a public paper you can read that he wrote on China's, what he believes is China's, or rather what's on the record about China's biological program. And the Chinese officials in their defense department have essentially said they are not against, they are actually programs in place for precisely the kind of warfare that you're talking about.
I mean, this is what God did to the Egyptians in the Old Testament, correct?
It is a narrative that has existed. And it's like,
Whoa, 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 whoa. Come on. You're sitting here talking about all these government officials like it's gospel. And then you actually get to the Bible and now it's a narrative. Now it's a narrative. Come on, Annie. I just went out of my way to double check the fact check and give you the credit where the credit's due. You're starting to lose me again here. No, I'm just playing. I'm just having fun, guys. Come on.
where does it go? The argument not to have that is it's too evil. And the consequences are too great. Hence the idea that it is, odious to the nature of mankind. So the bigger idea that I think we're getting to is like, so what is the solution? If all of this is possible, what is the solution? And right now we're kind of, I think, stuck in this idea of like, well, the debate is really only on the gain of function, right? The debate is like, the bad guys are making those kind of weapons, maybe even targeting a certain genetic population. And so we have to create medical countermeasures because of it. And if that if you think that's utopian or dystopian, that's a worthy debate, I think, because I've heard arguments on both sides of the aisle. Like,
All right, listen, I understand you want to say if it's a good idea or a bad idea, but when speaking about biological warfare in any capacity, I don't think you could make that synonymous with the word utopia. I think it's definitely more in the dystopian category, no matter which way you spin it. Because in a utopia, we wouldn't have to worry about any of this shit ever. Yes or no? And guys, I did a poll earlier. Let me see. I'm going to end the poll now. We had 237 votes. Thank you very much for voting. I said, What scares you more? Data centers, biological weapons, nuclear war, or Lance Twigs? And data centers etched out biological weapons. In fourth place, we got Lance Twigs at 8%, which means that like 15 of you voted for him, which is pretty funny. Nuclear war at 19%. Then in second place, we have biological weapons at 35%. But number one on the list of what scares you more is data centers at 38%. And guys, do me a favor. If you haven't already, please like the video, like the live, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All engagement helps the algorithm. Whether you're liking, sharing, whatever, it's all appreciated. Thank you very much. We have another super here from Ferry on the River Styx, $2. Thank you. They could change DNA. It's called CRISPR technology. Yes, it is. And I've gotten into that in the past, and I will be getting into that again in the very near future. So definitely look out for that. Let's keep going with the video for now.
You cannot prevent the bad guys, the adversary, whoever they may be, terrorist organizations, some crazy college kid or high school student in his basement. You can't prevent them. You can't prevent all evil. The threshold's too low. So the biotechnology industry must prevail, must be allowed to work on these medical countermeasures that involve tweaking the virulence, the transmissibility, and the medical countermeasures of different pathogens. Either way, I think it's very important that people know about this.
And she's basically saying there, when she's talking about like tweaking these pathogens and whatnot, she's referring to gain of function research, just so that we're clear.
So that in the godforsaken event, something does happen, there's not an immediate, wildly speculative narrative, right?
Mm-hmm. So does the government have any countermeasures for the citizens of this country, or is it just for themselves?
Well, the countermeasure question, the reason why I use that Soviet sort of evil concept, it's called a chimera weapon, bioweapon. The chimera is this ancient Greek monster. You've seen images of it. Like think of the head of a lion and the tail of a serpent, or with a goat coming out of it. A chimera just means like a multi-species monster. And that is essentially what genetic engineering is. You're taking the DNA of one viral species and you're mixing it with another. And so the chimera weapon, the original chimera weapon, was this plague super weapon that you take the antidote and it turns into a booby trap and it kills you. So, that idea becomes what the Defense Department calls a wicked problem, because there is no solution to it. Because how do you know whether or not the antibiotic is going to kill you unless you have evidence?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the devolution plan happens pretty much really fast, because the chances can't be taken because the threat's so high.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the public health side of things, you have a lot of people, instead of saying, well, you can't just go down the evil rabbit hole of the military, industrial complex of it. You have to have public health awareness. And that's why there are a lot of people I interviewed in the book who are like, it's all about diagnostics. Diagnostics, fancy word for testing, I mean, remember in COVID, by the end of COVID, year 2, whatever it was, I live in Los Angeles, you could buy a COVID test at the 7-Eleven. Remember, did you have that?
All right. Now, before they're about to get more into the COVID testing, I just want to say real quick. Now, what she's saying is right in theory. I do believe that if you have foreign powers that are working on this type of technology and you have actual evidence that they are planning to use it against you or any sovereign nation, or any nation for that matter, it obviously would be good to have defensive and preventative measures to deal with it. But the issue that I have, it's not so much with the technology itself or with the idea that they're doing this gain of function research as a defensive measure. The problem that I have is when you have the type of corruption and lack of transparency that we've seen from our own government, and then especially after the whole shit show that was COVID, I'm sorry, it gets a little hard to trust our government with this stuff. Because let's not pretend like our government does not have a history of poisoning its own people or using this type of stuff to test on its own people. I mean, they've been doing that for 100 years. The American government was giving its own citizens syphilis just to treat it, not cure it, treat it just to see what would happen. We already know with MK Ultra that they were giving people LSD and testing it on them. And God knows what else that they've done on their own people that hasn't even been declassified, that we'll probably never even know about. So yeah, in theory, the idea that you want your government to have certain scientists that are working on some of this gain of function research in the event that another country uses it on us. But that's not really been the reality. And with everything we've seen from our government and everything that's gone on, like, there are legitimate concerns that our government is going to use this technology against us, against the American people, and then blame the foreign nation. You understand? Yeah, we live in a fucked up world. Like, that's what it really comes down to. We live in a fucked up world when you can have someone like Annie Jacobsen, who's sitting here rattling off all these names of people that she's spoken to in confidence that have been working for the government for decades in this, doing this type of work, this type of research, this type of field. And it's like, you listen to her and you're like, yeah, that sounds good and all, but is that really what's going on? Or is this like just some sort of propaganda, some kind of like narrative that you're spinning? So when our own government does it to us, we have somebody else to blame. You know, and you get a lot of people out there that'll listen to me say some of this stuff and just say that I'm crazy, that I'm a conspiracy theorist, that, oh, I'm just some nut job wearing a tinfoil hat. But am I? Or is it maybe, just maybe, it's possible that some of these theories are true? I really want you guys to think about that, honestly. Because sometimes I don't know what to think when I listen to interviews like this.
Access kind of you could literally,
we may have, I don't know.
health awareness. And that's why there are a lot of people I interviewed in the book who are like, it's all about diagnostics. Diagnostics, fancy word for testing. You know, I mean, remember in COVID, by the end of COVID, year 2, whatever it was, I live in Los Angeles, you could buy a COVID test at the 7-Eleven. Remember, did you have that access kind of you could literally,
we may have, I don't know. The test didn't work. I never wanted to get tested anyways, because, you know, there was the speculative narratives that they were calling you after you got tested to make sure, you know, that you know, whatever. And, but my wife was pregnant at the time. Nobody really knew what the hell was going on. So I did get tested, and I took 2 tests, and one was positive and one was negative, and the speculative narratives were correct. I did get calls, and
wow, you took them at like a urgent care?
Yeah, I took it at an urgent care.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, I had to get the COVID test once before I got my first back surgery. They sent me into a clinic near the hospital. They did the nose swab. They sent it in, and then I went in to get my back surgery like 2 days later. And then there was another time where there was a family friend that they were having a party, and then last minute, first they wanted everyone that was going to the party to be vaccinated. I said that I wasn't. Then they're like, listen, if you're not getting vaccinated, at least get tested before you come to the party. It was like some, you know, paranoid people. I'm like, whatever. I did feel a little offended that I was told like last minute to do this, but I'm like, you know what? I want to go, care about everybody there. I go to CVS, I pick up one of these tests. It was like $50, right? I get home, I go to take the test, and they tell me that I need to download the app and upload all my personal information to get the results. Which at that point I said, screw this, and I did not go to the party. Because it just felt so weird to me. Like, think about it. If this is a real pandemic and they're worried about people's health, why would they put some sort of wall behind getting the results of the test? You know what I mean? Like, it's bad enough that they're charging you $50 to get the test. And then they want all your personal information. They want a name, address, phone number, like the whole enchilada. And it rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, I'm not going to put myself in one of these fucking databases. For what? So I can go to a party? Like, I don't know what they're doing with this information. And I don't know. You know, like, some people think that I'm paranoid. I don't think so, though. I don't think so. When certain intuition kicks in, when the spidey senses start tingling, and I'm like, okay, there's something wrong here. Like, I'm the type of person that tends to go with my gut. And like I said, if you have a real pandemic, a real health crisis that they're saying everybody's lives are on the line, they should be giving these tests away. They should be funding them. They should be doing what they can to make them affordable. Not charge $50. You take the test. It's like, okay, we're going to give you the results as soon as you give us all your information. It was I found it to be very sketchy, very sketchy. And seeing how everything's played out years later, and I don't know. I think I made the right decision.
And, you know, so I never took another, and that was before that. So yeah, I guess that was, if I could have done something undocumented, then I would have done something undocumented.
Yeah.
Because I don't want my information in the government's hands, but not that it isn't already. But so no, we didn't have the over-the-counter tests at that particular point in time, which would have been around 2021.
So in big cities, you could suddenly literally buy they were called dipstick tests, and you could sit in your car and test yourself, and then you were supposed to, because there were asymptomatic people in COVID, meaning people who carried COVID, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, it's called officially, and didn't have any symptoms, like my son. So then you were supposed to work on the honor system of like not being around anybody because you were a carrier. It's called a silent carrier. You could get everybody else sick, but you weren't sick. But I think your point about not wanting the government to know is so incredibly important, that the government has to learn from these errors. They have to work with the public. People do not want the sense that the government is lurking over them and looming over them, particularly with their health. It's like the biotechnology surveillance military industrial complex. And it's very real. But I found an interesting loophole in it that I drill on into the book, which I'm sure will raise some eyebrows from some groups of people, and I don't care, which is that, so after 9/11, Dick Cheney himself was like personally terrified of bioweapons. And
you know, I'm sorry. Every time I hear Dick Cheney get brought up in something, again, spider senses start tingling. And I'm sure he was afraid of bioweapons with all the shit that they were up to, you know, but sometimes the people that are looking for solutions become part of the problem, whether or not intended. And again, when they were tracking everybody's information and they said that they were trying to track the spread and whatnot, like, I get that. And on the surface, that's a good thing. But when you see where all this data ends up getting hoarded and going into these databases, and you realize that they're doing more than that with that information. You know what I mean? Like, you look at any app that you download that has like the whole terms and conditions, and they'll have rational explanations. You talk to any of these CEOs, they'll have rational explanations for at least the majority of the data that they're trying to collect from you. But we all know that somewhere along the way, you're going to get somebody that has access to this data that is going to have malicious intents. You know, we're seeing it now with these flock cameras. You talk to the people that are behind the flock cameras, and they say that it's great. It's keeping civilization safe. And anybody who's against it is a domestic terrorist, you know? And then all of a sudden you find out that there are reports that you got people that work for the flock camera company that are accessing the database to look at children in daycare centers. You know, that part was probably not in the terms and conditions. I could be wrong, but that's just my guess. You know, that might not have been part of the initial plans, but somewhere along the way, like I said, you get individuals that have access to this information that are going to have malicious intent. And then if you happen to have somebody that is either blackmailed or in financial distress or has something else going on where they could be leveraged to take that information and take these databases and then give it to somebody else who it was never intended for in the first place, then you're opening up Pandora's box and you're looking at a whole other list of potential problems down the road for the individuals whose information was given or taken. I'm not wrong on this, by the way. I say all the time that, you know, I like to be objective and I try to see both sides of the arguments. But when it comes to all this information that's just getting sucked out of us, all this metadata, like every detail of our lives, like you're never going to convince me that there's a justification for it. I'm sorry, you're just not. You're just not. I think it's crazy. I think it's a violation of our Fourth Amendment rights. I think it's dangerous. And I don't think that there's any place for it in a sovereign nation. And I stand by that. And I'm going to continue to stand by that.
And he was part and parcel to this extreme escalation, I mean, of gain of function, of medical countermeasures, of opening up more biosecurity level 4 labs, of all of this sort of biotech billions of dollars went into this industry, this brand new industry. Remember, there was 9/11. People forget.
Wise
then there were the
dove,
anthrax
you're a wise
attacks.
dove.
Anthrax was mailed through the mail to some
Mic
news
drop.
outlets.
Thank you, Ferry.
And a couple senators on Capitol Hill. Never been solved. Thank you, FBI. Okay. Literally.
I mean, that's a given.
Okay. So it created an entire industry about biodefense. And one of the results of that was many people don't know about this. There is something called the National Syndrome Surveillance System that monitors, that collects information in real time from more than 7,000 emergency rooms, urgent care facilities, yours included, all of these facilities across America, 7,000 of them in the 50 states. That is a lot.
That is a lot. All right. Now, did you listen to what she just said? Now she's cooking. Now she's cooking. I was making some jokes before because like I said, I thought she was putting a little spin on that fastball and maybe she was trying to push the buck. Maybe she's trying to like spice it up. I don't know. Like I said, some of the stuff that I originally thought she was wrong on, I fact checked. It turned out she was right. I give credit where credit's due. But now she's really cooking. She just said that you have 7,000 ERs throughout the 50 states in America that are basically live streaming the information of their patients to the CDC while it's happening. That means you, your kid, whoever, you bring them to the emergency room, and while you're there, before you even get to see a doctor, your information could already be going into a database with the CDC. It's a little scary. It's a little scary because like just take a step back and think about this for a second. Where are their priorities? Because if it was just about our health, then they would, instead of lobbying to have technology and sell technology and get this type of information from us, they would be lobbying to make the healthcare itself more affordable. Yes or no? But healthcare is not the priority. Curing us of our illness is not the priority. It's about getting our information, treating us, making sure we keep going back for more treatment, and sucking us dry in the process. Like, that's the game. That's the business. If you think when you go to the hospital that your health, your well-being, your children's health or well-being are the top priority, you are sadly mistaken, my friend. It is not. It is a business. It is a grift. It is just like anything else. Otherwise, they would have had no problem prescribing everybody ivermectin during COVID, but they didn't. They did what was getting them paid. It was dangerous medications, untested vaccines, and ventilators that probably caused as many deaths as the disease itself.
All the information goes in near real time to the CDC, where it is kept and monitored. Okay. So it's a very real system that is monitoring people. The goal of which was to stop a pandemic if it happens. Well, how did that work out in COVID? Not well. But a little loophole I found in it, which is, when you know this from your work in the military, that a hole is exactly what an adversary targets. And a fascinating hole to me is that, and this I learned from working with the world's or America's most senior epidemiologists, people who are trying to prevent like outbreaks from taking over. And one of the holes in the system that they pointed out to me was the homeless population. There are 800,000 homeless people in America. None of their information goes into that important CDC National Syndromic Survey. A fact confirmed with me by HHS, by the way.
Wow.
So if you have that kind of a gaping hole, where are you going to target? Where are the super spreader events? Where is there no health care? Where are these people living on top of one another? Where are their symptoms of disease going to be mistaken for a zillion other things if they even have any access to a medical doctor? And so that is where I have the outbreak in America.
Yo, she is really cooking. I want to take a second, real quick, though. I want to see where we're at and run the rest of the transcript because I'm definitely not going another full hour. And I did not watch it after this point, and I want to hit the most pertinent points and parts of this interview. So, guys, what do you guys think so far? Actually, let's do another poll. All right. So, do you guys find Annie Jacobsen's information credible? Yes, no, or need to fact check more? New member, Cool Pigeons 98. Thank you very much, bud. Appreciate you. I actually do. I find her information credible. Like I said, I think that she's reaching at a certain point. at certain points, but overall, I like her. I thought that her Rogan interview, her first one like 7 years ago, was great when she was talking about Operation Paperclip. I thought that that was very informative. All right, I got to tell this to be more specific. Let's see what's going on X. And guys, do me a favor. Everybody hit that like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Why didn't it? That's weird. It's not even doing what I asked. All right, whatever.
Were people behaving like, were they following traffic laws? Were people
I mean,
driving on the grass?
it's bottlenecked.
It's bottlenecked.
There are no traffic laws.
Okay.
I mean, you can't
Couldn't
get
move.
anywhere. It's
Couldn't move.
gridlocked.
Wow.
You know, I mean,
Mhm.
a gas line, I mean, will go all the way down the interstate.
So let me ask you, FEMA.
That's a hurricane.
Yes.
That's a
yes,
hurricane.
That's a hurricane.
And that hurricane
Yes.
didn't even mess.
Yeah, I think she's a little more than halfway decent. I'm still not. I still think it's very probable that she's pushing an agenda, whether she knows it or not. But I think that she's good. She was one of the better people around during COVID that wasn't pushing completely everything on everybody. Yeah, I didn't pay attention to her during COVID. Before this, I had only seen her one interview on Rogan. And like I said, that first one I enjoyed a lot too.
You're welcome.
Up another super chat. Anne Marie Crochets, $10. Thank you very much. Great overview, Bays. Yeah, thank you. I try. You know, like I said, I just try to be honest with things. I'm very transparent with my takes.
Welcome. Sig. So I got a friend over there. His name's Jason. He's VP of marketing, and he heard you were coming on, and he loved the nuclear war scenario interview. So he wanted me to give that to you. It's got the Sig flashlight on there, so you're not ever in the dark. And the new Sig Romeo optic red dot. So you can fix a lot of you can skip right through a lot of fundamentals of shooting and just point and pull the trigger.
He's giving her a gun.
Then it was given to me to give to my son, one of my two sons. And it's a really Los Angeles, being a good citizen. I go to do my jury duty. This was several years ago. This was before COVID. So
I bet everyone was like, "Holy shit, Annie Jacobsen's on jury duty with me."
No one, you know, I'm like in a room full of people who are all like, "Why am I here?" Okay. But so before COVID, I didn't own any firearms but I did own a firearm because my grandfather was a captain in the army who was behind enemy lines in what was then called Czechoslovakia, who became like the guy in charge when the war ended and took a Luger off a Nazi and brought it home.
Wow.
Okay. So this was in the possession of my mother. And then it was given to me to give to my son, one of my two sons. And it's a really incredible artifact because it actually, like, they're all identifiable to certain Nazis. And at the end, it comes with a certificate from the War Department. So it's war booty, but you were allowed to actually have it. So it's officially my grandfather's. And now, okay, so it's in our house.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible, right? Just as a piece of, I have his Purple Heart and his Luger.
Man, that is
right.
What a great heirloom.
So there I am doing jury duty, and it's a police brutality trial. And one of the questions that they're asking as they're trying to select jurors is who has a firearm, right? So I'm down here. I'm like, okay, being a good citizen, I'm under oath, Of course, I raise my hand because I do. and by the way, this is before jury selection. So there's 50 people in this room, in this courthouse, all of whom under oath or the variation of that. Okay. I'm the only one who raises my hand of having a firearm.
Wow.
And I was like, looking like, what? How is this even possible? And when I was home that night at dinner, I had this discussion with my kids and my husband, and they're like, Mom, everyone in LA has illegal guns, and they don't want to admit it. Now, I have no idea if that's true, but it's a very interesting observation. And what is true is that no one else raised their hand.
Man.
Maybe
I
it's a
could see it
little,
either way.
maybe it's a little sort of perception versus reality, right?
Yeah.
No one wanted to admit they had a firearm. I have no idea.
I could see it either way. When I'm traveling,
Did people out of the United States of America. A lot of early wargaming planning was predicated on precisely those kinds of scenarios, like what would happen, how would the targets disperse. In the past 20 years or so, with the advent, or rather the advancement of genetic engineering, all of that no longer pretty much matters. And we saw this in COVID. It once an airborne pathogen, right? So there used to only be a very few truly airborne pathogens that a medical countermeasure didn't exist for. And so you would have to kind of do exactly what you're talking about, like have multiple targets. This was the terrorist threat. But now that an airborne pathogen can be modified with ease, we saw in COVID that it just begins to spread naturally on its own. And if you shorten the window of, contagion to death, you have one kind of effect. If you lengthen it, right? So COVID had a lot of sort of what were silent carriers for a long time. Now it's spreading in a different manner. And so as a result, most of the war games have begun to focus on two things, which is like first and foremost, and this is probably upsetting to a lot of people, is how to keep infected people out of the United States of America. There was one war game that I write about in particular. So I take the reader through the scenario and then I kind of stop for like little history lessons about different war games. And one of them that was conducted in 2018 describes boats of migrants. There's an outbreak in South America. So you've got all these panicked people leaving Venezuela in boats headed to Puerto Rico, hundreds of miles away. Okay. This is actually war gamed out. You can read it online. And they have this.
Guys, next time Blake Neff is in an X Spaces, somebody should ask him, because didn't he used to do war games? Wasn't he like a war game analyst or something? We should ask him if he's ever done any of this type of stuff with biological weapons. That would be a fun question to ask him.
The CDC officials deciding what to do. Like, do we actually let them come on land? And the answer is no. And then the subtext is rules of engagement, right? Now that is, and then of course you have another debate within this war game about how to deal with the press. Like if we start shooting at migrants in boats, we're going to have a real problem. It's going to be all over, the news. And that kind of candor in planning for a biological incident was shocking to me, because it really gets at the heart of the matter of the kind of sort of ruthless sort of, fortressing that Homeland Security will immediately try to do if the pathogen is outside trying to come in.
I mean, come on, guys, let's be real. Let's be real for a second. If the American government found out that there was some sort of like really bad biological weapon level pandemic disease, whatever, that was like close to US borders, what do you think they would do? What would you expect them to do? You think they're going to take any risks whatsoever with letting people come in with or spreading this disease within our borders? Hell no. They're going to quarantine whatever area they have to, and they're probably going to carpet bomb the shit out of it. Like, even if there was some sort of outbreak in like within the American borders, I don't know what they would do. All I know is if something like that came out and all of a sudden I saw like a bunch of military trucks and tanks and Humvees or whatever driving through town, I would probably be afraid. I wouldn't be thinking like, "Yay, the military's here. They're gonna save us." Like, you know what I mean? Like no. Like, I've seen that movie way too many times. What was that other one? Where they were like acting like crazy zombies. Oh, The Crazies. Guys, put a one in the chat if you've seen the movie The Crazies, where there was like some sort of virus that was like turning people into zombies, like 28 days later status. You ever seen that movie?
But what you learn from the wargaming is that the pathogen is almost always certainly already here. I mean, remember when President Trump's first administration, COVID happens, he closes the border with Europe. He's restricted any flights from China, but the pathogen is already here. People have it in New York City. People have it in Seattle. I did an interview with the former defense official in Italy, the defense minister. And he was telling, because there was a huge outbreak in Italy.
I remember.
Remember that? And you know why? It was because in Milan, which is a fashion capital of the world, had Chinese, individuals working in manufacturing Milan to China. They had brought it.
Yeah, let's be real. And I know we're talking movies, we're not talking real life, but in a lot of movies, like they tend to have real life scenarios and some things get exaggerated and whatnot. But all that aside, in any movie you ever see where there's some sort of like breakout of some sort of deadly virus, like usually when you see the military get involved, it's not a good sign for the people that are at risk. They're usually not coming with the vaccines to save everybody. Like, it's just, like, I don't know. Like, is there a movie like that? If there is, let me know in the chat. But I can't imagine a situation like this where like they just like pull up to save the day. Like I said, I think it's just isolate the infection, isolate the area, carpet bomb the shit out of it, make sure it doesn't spread. Like, that is going to be priority number one. It just is. They do think about before Biden left office. Remember that? And like when the eggs went up, and then like that was like all the propaganda that you saw on social media bashing Trump. It's like, oh well, are the eggs prices down yet? Because they said that Biden said that there was like a bird flu, and they killed 20 million egg producing chickens. They killed 20 million chickens because they were worried about a bird flu. Do you really think it would be that much different if there was some sort of flu like that was that contagious within America? If it was that deadly? If there was like a freaking pneumonic plague, like something that was airborne, that had the potential to spread throughout the entire country? Like, what do you think they're going to do? If they're told, like, listen, this coast, whether east, west, north, south, whatever, like this region of the country has this very, very, very contagious, very, very deadly disease. And in 48 hours, the entire nation is going to be infected. What do they do? What would you do? These are serious questions.
To China. But another interesting fact I learned from the FEMA chief is that most of the initial cases of COVID in New York City were from Italy, not from Wuhan. And they can tell this through.
Yeah, some of you guys are saying that they would just let it spread. You might be right. That's even more fucked up when you think about it.
Genetic testing later to determine the variants.
Did it start in New York or did it start in Washington?
In the United States, the first cases were in Washington. But the real panic, the real sort of like, oh my God, it's here moments was once New York City was infected.
Okay.
Because then people realized there's no way to stop this because of movement, I looked at bubonic plague, the Black Death, the plague of the Black Death, because bubonic plague becomes pneumonic plague in the lungs. And I wanted to show readers historically what has happened and what is possible. And what was interesting is I learned this very unique fact that, of course, pathogens travel at the rate at which humans move. So in the time of the Black Death in the 1300s, in the 14th century, people moved by caravan. People moved by ship. So it was like slow, right? Now people move by airplane. You can get from one side of the earth to the other in 15 hours. That's how fast things happen.
But they're still going to attempt to isolate it.
And I show that in the beginning of the book, because this is where you have the epidemiologists. This is where you have public health officials. This is where you have, by the way, I mean, by no means do I mean to make everybody in government sound like, some kind of incompetent bureaucrat. That is simply not the case. The individuals that I interview, and I list them all in the front of the book.
Angela, it's funny. I was just thinking of The Last of Us too. It's so true. It's so true. You see these shows and these movies like this, it's like it's wild. And guys, don't worry. I only cover stuff like this like once in a blue. I'm really not trying to like start leaning into like all the fearmonger content. But like I said, the interview that I saw with Annie Jacobsen on Joe Rogan like 7 years ago was really, really good. And then when I saw that she was doing this one with Shawn Ryan, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do a show tonight. This is probably going to be worth covering. And I think this has been good. I think it's informative. I think that there is a level of propaganda that's coming with it and a level of fear mongering. But all in all, I definitely learned something today.
Like COVID. I mean, like the nuclear war book, so that people can see, wow, she's talking to the top subject matter experts in public health, in defense, in federal emergency management, extraordinarily competent people, desperately trying, literally, to, bring these different factions of the government together to pay attention to this threat, to actually take actions so that America is prepared for such a thing. And I show their stories that they tell me of like how the good part of that, of like how they have made progress, and then also where they are so failing. And the failures are always political.
What measures would they go through to isolate an incident?
So one of the
Quarantine.
it's this super important question. Quarantine does exist, but before that, it's all about diagnostics. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. Like, you went and had a COVID test, right? Now that has spiraled into its whole set of rabbit hole problems. But the diagnostics, the testings are important, because very few people realize that the doctor doesn't know what he's looking at. The doctor doesn't know. You can walk in with a sneeze and a cough, and the doctor doesn't know. That's why the doctor will say, I think you have. Okay, want me to give you an example that's kind of easy to wrap your head around?
Mhm.
Okay, strep throat. Have you had strep throat
Yeah.
recently?
No.
Okay, so strep throat, you go in, you're like, doctor, my throat hurts. They give you a strep test. Strep is a bacteria. Bacteria are killed by antibiotics. You go into the doctor, you say, I have a strep. They give you a strep test. Because strep is ubiquitous, the test often happens in the back of the doctor's office. It takes 5 minutes for a strep test. When I was growing up in the 70s, a strep test took 2 or 3 days. That's science. When you were growing up?
All right, guys, here's the deal. I'm willing to go a little bit longer. This sucks. My poll glitched out. It's not even letting me close it or start a new one. That's weird. That never happened before. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We can either, because before this live, I was doing a members only, and we were actually watching the Annie Jacobsen interview with Joe Rogan a couple of years ago. We can cover that. We could cover some Candace. We could cover some other clips, or we could do a Q&A. Unless there's any other really good suggestions. You guys let me know. Whatever we're going to do. And also, do me a favor. Again, like the live, share it, subscribe if you haven't already. It all helps the algorithm. It helps the channel. If you want to support the channel, you could become a member. You could gift some memberships if you want, if that's your thing. I got blessed the other night. Thank God. And I am doing more members only lives because of it. The more members I get, the more of like the after parties that I'm going to do, the more frequently I'm going to do like a second and third members only live every week. And we have a lot of fun with those. I already did one today. I'm not going to do another one. I'm going to keep it public tonight, but we could have a little fun. I just got to, I am going to have to go and get a lidocaine patch for my back though, because my back is killing me sitting in this chair for too long. Good on all topics. Aaron Brockovich on data centers with Shawn Ryan. No, we're going to switch it up. I'm not going to go too long on Shawn Ryan. You know what? I'm going to throw a little Candace on real quick while I get my lidocaine patch. Where are we going to start? Oh, damn, Bongino. I don't want to miss that part. All right, let's go with Governor Cox. And I will be right back, guys.
Anyway, we are in the process right now of going back. I was telling you guys this last week and trying to remember all of the random cow manure that we were spoon-fed early on, right? It's actually quite a difficult task. I'd argue it's actually a full-time job to keep track of fed slop, but somebody's got to do it. And do you remember when we were told by Governor Cox during an official FBI press conference, a briefing on September 12th, that the assassin changed clothes on the rooftop? That's what the public was told 2 days after the assassination, after they were able to pull, review, and release the footage to the public. Take a listen.
One more thing, Governor. Could you just clarify the clothing issue you mentioned earlier? Was he changing outfits?
Correct. Yes. So when he's first spotted on campus, he has different clothing on, and then he changes clothing on the roof, and then changed back into that clothing at some point, so that when he was apprehended, when he was arrested, the clothing matched the clothing he had on before the shooting here at UVU.
Next question. Quick, I don't want to have to follow up on the BS that I just said. Now, standing to his side, obviously on the right-hand side of your screen, that's Kash Patel. On the other side, that's Bo Mason standing behind the governor. And you will note that at no point did those two intervene and say, oh, no, that's incorrect. And don't forget, I must stress, this is after they arrested Tyler Robinson, seized the text messages, had the ability to review the footage everywhere on campus, presumably. So what happened to that narrative? There's supposed to be somebody butt naked on the rooftop. What happened to that narrative? Did the governor go rogue like Andrew Colvett? I hate when that happens. Or did they just completely make that part up as they were trying to make the various decoy boys make sense? I never understood why he needed to change it all. Why can you not wear a maroon shirt? And if you're going to change, why wouldn't you do that in the bathroom? They were trying to tell to us that the assassin was also an exhibitionist or something. Literally, what would be the point of changing from a maroon shirt into a long sleeve shirt with an American flag on a rooftop? I mean, it's amazing that I'm actually held to a higher standard than the FBI. Let me get a time zone calculation incorrect, right? After daylight savings time. Let me use a website and think that it's giving me local time and share local time as I did. And then turns out it's not local time. It's
Aha, I got it. All right. I was able to get the poll. I don't know what happened. I don't know why I lost it for a minute. All right. So do you find Annie Jacobsen's information credible? And I spelled credible wrong. I just realized that. All right. Okay. Need to fact check more. I like the fact that need to fact check more was the winner on the poll at 49%. And 32% said yes, 19% said no, And it's kind of 50-50 on the people that said yes and no and the people that said they need to fact check more. I'm proud of you guys. I think fact check more was 100% the right answer. Because anytime you're getting information from anybody, myself included, you should always put a little extra work in to fact check. Always. Don't trust anybody in this world. Trust Jesus. That's it. All right, now let's see. I saw she was saying something about Dan Bongino. All right, let's get into this. I have not roasted Dan Bongino in a very long time. If you guys, in case you guys have not seen, I actually did a live a couple months back called The Roast of Dan Bongino. So if you ever happen to have some time and you haven't seen it already, you could look for that one. I think you'll enjoy it.
I can beat him in a fight. Well, Dan Bongino joined Megyn Kelly. I want you to understand this is on September 15th. So we're now 5 days removed from the assassination. He's working at the FBI and has every resource at his fingertip. And here's his excuse for why nothing's making sense. Take a listen.
That's another thing that people are confused about, because if Cash said that they found his, what we presume was his screwdriver on the top of the building, and they found his DNA on it, leading many to believe he had disassembled the gun when he jumped off of the roof. But then it appears when you guys found it in the woods, it was assembled. So can you provide any clarity on that?
Yeah, and I was a little hesitant in a media appearance this morning to go into specifics on especially the video and where the gun was. And there's a reason. Again, we only want to be transparent here.
Yeah, just tell us what you
suspect. Yeah, the suspect.
You got to love how that's the first thing that he said. We only want to be transparent here. Really, Dan Bongino? Really? Are you sure? You only want to be transparent? The most transparent administration of all time? I got to call bullshit on that one.
Suspect not cooperating is, the video is obviously grainy. And as folks in the video space know out there, we have a number of really excellent tools in our lab, which is, they're doing amazing work, and they've been up and handling this for days now. But the video is very grainy. And I want to be very clear, and I don't want to, there was, I've already seen some online show. Yeah, I can see it on the screen. Now, you'll see it's a grainy video. Now, I've been on that roof in that corner, and when you see the camera and the distance away, it's clearly not the best video.
Not sure you answered the question there. That's a tricky one. So my kids always say when something's confusing, they go, "That's a tricky one, Mom. That is a tricky one." So are we to believe that our nation's top brass couldn't rush to get some of that 4K HD, 4D chess, super D duper, crystal clear, overwhelming footage that was made available to Benny Johnson, Graham Allen, and his wife 10 months later, and some other influencers? And we still don't have an explanation for the rooftop and why he had the screwdriver at all. Also, what could they have possibly seen that would have led them to believe that he had changed clothes on the rooftops? There's still no answer for anything. Grainy footage? I actually have an idea. Let me spin a more plausible story to you. I think my source, the person who recorded the rooftop guy on Losi, is likely telling the truth about the tactical clothing. I think it was never even actually a towel that we saw in the footage. That the rooftop jogger, the rooftop sprinter had. I think it was likely a black jacket, just as the person who recorded described. He said he was wearing a black jacket and tactical gear. All he knows is he was wearing all black, because there was that blurry image that we were told was a towel, because they had to then make it fit in with the gun, which was wrapped in a towel. But let's check that out. Because I think it's much more likely that rooftop man was just a decoy who never fired any gun. He was tasked with sprinting away at the right time. And I think it's plausible that while he was running, he dumped his tactical gloves, and what's in his hand there is his black jacket and his backpack, which was also described by my eyewitness who was never contacted for some reason. I think he dropped all that by the bus stop near Fulton Library. And those items, as we learned, were then recovered by Sergeant Jennifer Falmina of the State Bureau of Investigations.
I actually like that theory. What do you guys think? I think that's definitely plausible. You know, the whole black towel. I don't know. We got another super chat. Destroy the Blob, $10. Thank you very much, Bays. Check the last message I sent you on Discord. Ashton Forbes on Paramount Tactical is more insufferable than Lisa Knows Nothing. It will be the best live hate watch ever. I don't want, yo. I don't know. I don't want to do the Paramount Tactical live hate watch, you know, and for a simple reason. Like I've criticized Gary to, you know, when talking to him, like about doing the hate watch videos on Candace. You know what I mean? Like it's just I don't know. Listen, they can be fun. They can oh no, don't yawn. No, I'm trying to keep going. The hate watch videos can be fun, but I feel like a lot of people are doing that with Gary these days. That is funny though. I'll check that one out. I didn't watch it. I will. I'm not gonna do like a hate watch party for it, but I'll check it out first, and then we'll see maybe in the future.
Office, and I have to say this, Jennifer Falmina rubs me the wrong way. Can't explain it. It's the vibes. It's her entire posture.
I think I saw her on a Netflix
blacks out
documentary
on what could be a crucial piece of evidence. I don't recall. Oh, you don't recall whether you signed off on the FBI not testing a backpack, gloves, potential tactical gear that were abandoned upon the exact path that the shooter ran? You just don't recall that?
Yo, look at Candace's hair. Like, look at how perfectly straight her hair is. Is it me, or does every time Candace have her hair perfectly straight like this, you know that she's about to like fuck some shit up? You know, like I feel like she's got a little extra pep in her step, a little extra sass going on. You know, like she does her hair like that on days where she's like really fired up and ready to go. That's just an observation.
Who are you, Sergeant Jennifer Falmina? Over the weekend, a lot of people noted that she appeared, indeed she did, on season 2, episode 1 of the Netflix show called
Get the Fuck Out. Yo, I swear to God, I didn't watch this today. I did not know she was going to say that. I saw the Netflix thing on X a couple of days ago. I did not know that she was going to bring that up. I was watching the damn Shawn Ryan thing. That's why I said let's watch Candace, because I didn't watch it yet. And I'm like, screw it, because I was going to watch it anyway. I'm like, I might as well keep streaming it. Yo, that is so funny. I know half of you probably don't even believe me, but I swear to God, that's the truth.
Worst Roommate Ever, where she indicates that she worked with the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. Here's what she says. Take a listen.
You can't make it up.
I've been with the State Bureau of Investigation for 8 years, but I'm also assigned full-time to the FBI as part of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And especially with this case, it was one where with this...
Yeah, that was the screenshot that I saw. Yo, straight out of Central Casting. Yo, that's too funny.
This type of bacteria, and not knowing this person's intent in purchasing it, we really had to act fast.
So I'll say this, police officers do participate in various TV shows, especially when they're recapping a crime. It's not completely off the mark, but it certainly piqued my interest in her and her background. And she has spoken about how she was born and raised in Hawaii, moved to Utah. And so I decided to just, prod it, see if it's true. And what we have been able to confirm about Jennifer Falmina is she was indeed raised in Hawaii. In 2003, we found her playing basketball at a private school in Hawaii. From there, she moved to Ogden, Utah, where she studied criminal justice, graduating from Weber State University, which was founded by the Mormon Church, in 2008. In 2013, she completes what's known as post-training at the Utah Department of Public Safety. We then find her. The only mention we could could find of her in these next years was in an article in 2016 volunteering for crowd control at the RNC convention. I'll show you that. The RNC convention was in Ohio. They needed volunteer troopers from all around. And you can see Jennifer Faumina is pictured there as one of these volunteer troopers. Now, what I will say is odd about this particular placement is that it is the only one that we can find that confirms that she was a state trooper. Remember, public records exist for government salaries, and we find none that list her as being a paid officer with the Utah Department of Public Safety until 2018. We couldn't find an article that mentions her before 2018 either. Aside from that, instead, she appears to be working some sort of a part-time gig at Weber State University. We are happy to update that information if more becomes available, but it appears to us like maybe she was still in school, receiving further certifications. I'm not entirely sure. What is known is that in 2018, like I said, we have her officially working for the Utah Department of Public Safety, and she is paid very well. Hence why I believe that she had more schooling. And there's another interesting tidbit. Now, regarding that FBI press conference that we showed you earlier, Kash Patel is standing to the right, and he's standing next to the newly appointed state police commissioner, Bo Mason. That's Bo Mason. You should know that Bo Mason was appointed to that position of commissioner of Utah, of the Utah Department of Public Safety on June 19th of 2025 by Governor Cox. And this is not the press conference. The one that we showed earlier with Kash Patel is the one that I wanted to show there, that we showed earlier with Kash Patel standing there. You know, I'm talking about the press conference where the governor says that he was on the changed clothes on the rooftop. Anyway, it turns out that that guy, Bo, was apparently in the same post back in 2013, that training photo with Jennifer Faumina in 2013. So I can show you that. That's the two of them together. It's a pretty small post session, but that's May 20th, 2013. The two of them are listed together, and they are, I don't know how it works, and I could be ignorant, and I'm sure I'll get emails from people. There's another photo of them, fast forward, Jennifer Faumina and Bo Mason together 10 years later in 2023 when she is sworn in as a sergeant, 2023, okay? Bo Mason's appointment to police commissioner is timely. I want to point that out. We have continually raised this pattern since early on in this investigation. There were so many new faces and new appointments in Utah ahead of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Everybody was seemingly new. Remember, we have the CEO of Timpanogos Hospital, Andrew Zenger. He was appointed just a couple of weeks before Charlie's assassination on August 18th, 2025. Of course, Judge Tony Graff was appointed in May 2025. We can skip Kash because that makes sense because Trump just came into office.
Damn, Candace put in work today, huh? Shit. I don't remember when the last time I really just streamed a Candace episode was. But I think I picked a good day. And I saw a comment before, no, Tristan, I did not run the transcript either. That's why if you noticed, I was scrolling around here looking at the chapters. I did not have time to watch Candace or run the transcript.
Bo Mason, as I just told you, was appointed on June 19th, 2025 to his position as commissioner. We talked in the past about the newer, I should say, medical examiner from July 2024. And then this one, which just gets me. Remember Special Agent Robert Bowles, who had been serving for the FBI office over in Virginia, but suddenly and rather inexplicably, Kash Patel fires the person that was heading up the
I
FBI
did not. Good to know.
Salt Lake City office. He fires that person and installs Robert Bowles.
I know.
On September 2nd, okay, 8 days before Charlie Kirk's assassination, Robert Bowles assumes that position. And I also, of the Salt Lake field office. And I also want to say he had a very long tenure up until that moment with the FBI all over the United States for almost 20 years. But they first want him in Utah on September 2nd, just in time for the September 10th assassination. Curiously, do you know actually
just in time for the she's on fire. Oh my God.
Actually where he began his policing career before he went to the military? Of all places, he began at the Provo Police Department back in the early 2000s. Check out this article from 2004. Before he joined the FBI, he was a Provo Police Department. He was in the Provo Police Department, and then he joins the military, and then he joins the FBI. So he really was kind of going back to his old stomping grounds in a way, just in the nick of time. Look, if I didn't know any better, it would look to me like they were getting the old gang back together, to use a phrase. But of course, I do know better. And our nation's FBI has never done anything wrong. They're honorable men. They just, can't seem to necessarily always get their stories together. By the way, speaking of gangs, and back to Ms. Jennifer Falmuina.
Well, you know what? I actually want to give a take on that real quick. Like with what Candace is kind of alluding to, that they're all new hires, because there's two sides to that coin. Now, if you think about it, the fact that they're all new hires, they're all new in their position, they have some level of history together, some capacity. That could also be interpreted that, you have new people that have ties, that trust each other. And if one of them is given bad information in this investigation or nudged in a certain direction, that the other people involved wouldn't have as much reason to be suspicious of it, because they have a reason to trust the person. They have a history with the person. If you had all different individuals that had been there for a long time, that really knew the job well, that knew the people that they were, they knew the area, whatnot, but they didn't know each other necessarily, they might have more reason to have more suspicion on one another. Does that make sense? I know I'm kind of talking sloppy right now, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not articulating what I'm thinking the right way, in the right words. But I feel like it doesn't necessarily mean that these people that these people specifically are involved in some sort of conspiracy that they know of, but that it's just easier to get them to toe the party line, so to speak. And that because they wouldn't be suspicious of each other. You got to remember, a lot of times when you have these conspiracies, it's not that everybody's involved. You have people that are doing their job to the best of their abilities within the parameters and given the evidence that they have to work with, but that they'll be given the wrong evidence, or they'll be given compromised evidence. So they think they're doing their job right. They might think that something's a little off, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're in on it, so to speak. You know what I mean? Whatever, I'll keep going.
She recently revealed on a podcast, don't tell me why she's also doing podcasts. Apparently she likes the media and cameras. She revealed that her sister was a social worker within the state of Utah. And of course, that allowed me an entry point to learn all about her family history. You know me and genealogy. It's a thing. I just need to know what everybody's mamas and great grandmamas are doing at all times. And regarding Jennifer, a really terrible thing happened.
Although with what Candace is saying right now, family ties is definitely a data point. If somebody has relatives that are the higher up that these people have family ties to and strong connections with, then the more reason that you have to be suspicious, because the people higher up are going to have a higher probability of knowing when something is off. So if you have somebody there and then you have somebody on the lower level that's connected to them in with a relationship or tie that, there's a level of trust there, then it gets a little more suspicious.
In the Falmuina family down in Hawaii in 1995, her father, a man named Subpoena, spelled phonetically, just as I'm saying it, Subpoena.
A man named Subpoena?
Was very vocal and in the news speaking out about it because it involved the homicide of his brother. Sergeant Jennifer Falmuina's uncle was killed. Now, apparently.
Yes, that is a very good term. Useful idiot. If you're talking about them, if you're talking about me, then we got a problem. No, I'm just kidding. I could probably be a useful idiot at times too. Who the fuck knows?
Apparently, his name was Missiona Falmuina. Apparently, he was in a gang with his friends, and as a part of a ritual in the gang, he took a beating. And I'm going to spare you the details because they're quite horrific, but it was graphic and it was brutal. And Missiona survived the beating, but after being transported to the hospital, he later on succumbed to his injuries. And it was this big case because there were arguments that went back and forth. Frankly, the arguments were bizarre.
You guys are fun
The
tonight.
defense
Thank
made
you.
it clear that these guys were all friends. It's just a part of like initiation rituals. And they must have proven their case because the 3 kids that were involved got charged with like 2nd-degree manslaughter. It was just, this was a part of what these Samoan guys do as a ritual for gang initiation. Even more curious, was Jennifer's father asserting in the press that his brother, her uncle, was a devout Mormon. Like, I'm just going, a devout Mormon gang member. We can take a peek at this together so you can see here what we're talking about. This is, I believe, the 2nd page. Yeah, his older brother. Can you go to the 1st page? I'm just going to read his brother, he said, was soft-spoken, well-mannered, and articulate. He was also a devoted Mormon who attended church in Waipaho every Sunday. He talks about their ward, so the Makilo ward, where the Faumuina family lived. And curious, which deserves a whole episode by itself, is that the brother was a member of this, or a part of this Adult Friends for Youth, which is run by Sid Rosen. That's that last paragraph there. Sid Rosen, who heads Adult Friends for Youth. Speaking out, he seemed like an unlikely candidate to be targeted in such a violent act. It's a tragedy. Okay, we have on the next page as well him speaking about how he was about to go on to his Mormon mission. There's just a lot here. There's a lot here. That Sid Rosen character, if I told you he was connected to Egypt and Israel, you wouldn't even believe me, so I'll skip that portion. The point is that we once again have these groups that are looking for troubled kids. Weird things happen. In later articles, Jennifer's father would claim that the gang was upset because he was going on this Mormon mission. The ward members would speak out denying that he was in a gang, which is rather curious because his older brother's not denying it, saying he fell into trouble, whatever. Just the entire story here, Mormons, gangs, it got me thinking. Because a while ago, I told you guys that I had connected with Courtney Love, and I'm talking a long time ago, back when Charlie was alive. And I had no idea, I told you, what she was talking about when she was describing to me the Mormon Mafia. She kept saying it is an extension of the Zionist Mafia, the Mormon Mafia. I truly...
Yo, it's so funny. The first time I heard the term Mormon Mafia was actually from Blake Bednar's. And I laughed my balls off, especially like when he was talking like serious. Like I started laughing. He's like, yeah, bro, the Mormon Mafia. And I started laughing like the Mormon Mafia. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And like Blake got all like serious. He's like, bro, he's like, dude, you have no idea. You don't want to mess with the Mormon Mafia. He's I'm like, listen, oh my God, this guy's got to be on drugs. I'm like, but he was like very convincing. He was very convincing. He was telling me, he's like, the Mormon Mafia does not mess around. You don't want to fuck with the Mormons. I'm like, yeah, I couldn't. I was like, I found it to be funny. I probably found it to be a little funnier than I should.
At this time, just could not process that information. And I go back now and I read those messages and I'm going, she knew exactly what she was talking about, I think. Because now a very interesting picture is emerging. And that's why I'm speaking to you about this. A picture that I think is going to shock you, but we have to unpack it quite slowly. I don't want to give you information overload today. So I just want you to park that in the back of your mind. Because I don't know about you, but I have not abandoned my deep sense that Israel was involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But that the assassination took place in Mormon territory makes it curious. Curious perhaps until tomorrow when we begin to thread some interesting connections for you. Anyway, we will be right back after a brief break. All right, you
Guys, did anybody see the video that I put out today? Put a 1 in the chat if you saw it, where I was talking about Julian Assange. I'm just curious. Oh, she's getting into all the fun TPUSA shit. You know, I was gonna stop the Candace stuff, but I might have to keep going. Yeah, if you have not seen the video that I put out today on Julian Assange and the CIA, I definitely recommend it. It's not a long one. It's short. What was it, like 10, 15 minutes, something like that? Not even. It's a good video though. I have a theory. But all right, I was gonna skip Candace and move to something else, but I actually want to keep watching this.
Saving today. Let's start with Frank Turek versus Frank Turek, because that's my favorite UFC matchup. Like, Frank gets so mad at the previous Frank, later Frank, previous Frank. They are not friends. And when the current Frank catches the previous Frank acting up, oh no, he exercises no humility. He gets caught telling a different story, and then he kind of looks at us and goes, "It's your fault for even noticing this." Well, apparently he did this podcast that I missed, responding to all of Candace's conspiracies. But oddly, he sort of just concedes every point that I told the truth, but it's still my fault anyways. It's really weird. Like, me noticing the discrepancies is the problem. He doesn't deny that there are discrepancies, basically wants you to understand that those discrepancies are not important. Now, I would say, some would say, that Brian Harpole asserting that CPR was not performed, while Frank Turek says that it was performed in the car, is a major discrepancy and a major contradiction. But I want you to listen to Frank.
Yeah, that's actually kind of crazy. If you've got 4 witnesses, right? You've got 4 people in the car. One is saying there was CPR. One is saying there was no CPR. One is claiming that his phone was on the entire time. His family heard everything. And then you find out later that somebody in that car called somebody from Ben Shapiro's security to give them an update. It's a little weird. Just a little weird. Like, you got to admit, even if you're not a fan of Candace, even if you're not, like, you know, into the whole Charlie Kirk conspiracy theory stuff, like, that's a little weird. All right, we'll keep going.
Frank Turek, because he owns it and makes it clear it's not a contradiction. Take a listen.
Brian is correct that most of the ride, we weren't doing any CPR. We couldn't do CPR. We're trying to stop the bleeding. So no CPR was done. It wasn't until the last, say, 30 seconds of the ride that I thought to myself, we got to be nearing like 8 or 9 minutes and he's not breathing and there's no heartbeat. I've got to at least try. It's probably going to be futile, but I got to at least try to start his heart and get some air in him. So I tried that for like 20 or 30 seconds at the very end of the ride when we're pulling into the hospital parking lot and we're yanking and banking our way there. Everybody agrees we were in the car taking Charlie to the hospital. And yeah, we were all trying to stop the bleeding. I mentioned CPR because I was the one trying it the last 20 or 30 seconds of the ride. It's not a contradiction. Right? Now, maybe as we're yanking and banking into the parking lot, Brian was preoccupied thinking or talking to somebody else or whatever, because it was a lot of commotion, as you could imagine. He didn't.
Yo, like, they sound like kids that get caught in a lie and then they try to, like, keep talking themselves out of the lie, and then they just start lying more and just making themselves look stupid. And at some point, you just want to slap them. Is that too much? I don't know. It's just that these people, they just come off so disingenuous. So disingenuous. It's like fucking insane. It's like, and these are supposed to be men of God. It's like, I just fucking can't with these people. And look at him with his purple shirt looking like fucking Barney with glasses. What the hell is going on?
Didn't see me trying for 20 or 30 seconds. Maybe he did. I don't know. In fact, he's got a lawsuit against Candace Owens right now, so I don't think he can even talk about any of this. But someone could call him and ask him if they want to. But
you know, that brings up a good point, because, you know, Brian Harpole, he was the first one to start going out and doing all these interviews. And every time the guy opened his mouth, it was just like another fucking problem for TPUSA. Maybe they egged him on to sue just so they could shut him up, you know? It's like, all right, Brian, you have a lawsuit. You have a lot on the line. Now you can't talk. No more interviews. No more interviews. He's got like the lawyer on the phone with him. Like, Brian, no more interviews. You have a lawsuit. You cannot talk. Every time guy would open his mouth, it's like a disaster. If you've been watching my channel, you know, because I covered all those interviews so many times, especially the Shawn Ryan one. It's insane.
It's not a contradiction. We're just emphasizing different details at different times. In fact, eyewitnesses disagree.
I wish one of these cocksuckers would have emphasized the details of Charlie's text messages the day before he died, specifically the ones to Andrew Colvett and Dan Flood about how he thought they were going to kill him. You know, just a couple of weeks after it was reported that sources close to Charlie said that he thought that if he left the pro-Israel cause, that he would get killed. So I'm really curious to find out who they is. And if they is referring to the left, then why wasn't Hunter Kozak ever brought in for questioning? I mean, he did the whole like little rehearsal that he did, right? He got caught basically reenacting the same reaction before he reacted. He never got brought in for questioning. And then I saw later that at first I thought that he was doing like a thumbs up, and everyone said no, that he was pointing a gun at Charlie like with his fingers. It's like, all right, so let me get this straight. So the guy gets caught like doing this, looking all weird. Then he's pointing an imaginary gun with his fingers at Charlie. Then he goes up. Charlie gets shot. He does the same reaction that he got caught doing on camera a couple minutes beforehand. And you're totally convinced that the left did this. And this is a guy from the Unfuck America tour whose dad, I heard, works for Jimmy Kimmel. Still waiting on like strong verification on that. Jimmy Kimmel being pretty leftist. And if you remember, he made some sort of joke about Charlie Kirk after he died that didn't really land well. And he thought he was losing his job for a couple days. But Hunter Kozak never got brought in for questioning. They never thought that maybe he knew something, right? No. What did they do instead? Oh, yeah, that's right. They brought him to the CBS town hall meeting to ask Erica Kirk a question. That's not shady at all. Like, really? Really? Like, what the fuck are we talking about? It's insane. Like, the way that all of this is played out, it's just so astronomically fucking retarded on levels and proportions that scale beyond anything that we've ever seen. Anything. You know, like, think about it. 10 years ago, we heard a hot take of Trump while he's on the campaign from years before, telling Billy Bush, bragging about grabbing girls by the pussy, or saying that he could grab them by the pussy, you know, because when you're that rich, you're that famous, they just let you to do it. They want you to do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's nothing. That's nothing. That's like getting caught farting online in the grocery store compared to the shit that's come out of the mouths from these people at TPUSA. Like, I'm not even kidding. I'm sorry if I'm coming off crude, if my analogies are like a little off or a little harsh, but like, I don't even know what to say anymore. I really don't. Like these people are insane. They are insane. And the fact that there are still millions of Americans that like listen to these assholes and they're like, yeah, you know, poor them. Can you believe Candace Owens and all of her fans are attacking these poor people? It's like, oh my God. Oh my God. It's like, no wonder they keep trying to pull the shit that they pull. The fact that it's even working on 1/10 of our population should scare the shit out of all of us. I'm sorry. I don't mean to get carried away.
On details for various reasons. That's the mark of authentic eyewitness testimony. They all agree on the essentials. They disagree on the minor details. In fact,
they don't all agree on the essentials. What are you talking about? This whole case is built around Lance Twiggs. whose own testimony contradicts the fucking narrative that you guys have all been pushing since day one. The minor details. Is this guy smoking crack? Seriously. Seriously. What are we talking about? Are these the people that were working for Charlie Kirk, or are these the people that were working for Hunter Biden? Because if you showed me all these people, if you showed me Blake Neff and Andrew Colvette and fucking Erica Kirk and Frank Turek and Brian Harpole, and I did not know, like Charlie was still alive. None of this shit ever happened. I had no idea who any of these people are, but you put them in front of a camera each for 30 seconds, all 5 of them. And you just go down the list, but one by one. And you got Charlie on one side and Hunter Biden on the other. And you said, who do you think they work for? I would think they all worked for Hunter Biden. And I'm not talking about 2026 semi-rehabilitated Hunter Biden. I'm talking about like 2020 banging his... I'm trying to be respectful here, you know, because I don't like to talk bad about that. You know, it's his brother and shit. I lost a brother. That's fucked up. But I mean, let's face it. Come on, he banged his deceased brother's wife. You know, he was going through a period. He was going through a rough patch in his life. But I'm saying that these are the type of people that I would think would be surrounding him in that portion of his life, not Charlie Kirk. I'm sorry. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to be offensive. Shout out to Hunter Biden. He's made a lot of progress. I'm not trying to freaking drag the guy through the mud. But I'm just saying, even Hunter Biden on his best day, I'm not going to put in anywhere near the same category as Charlie Kirk. And if you asked me, if I saw Erica Kirk for 30 seconds and you told me, who do you think she's married to, Charlie Kirk or Hunter Biden, I'm going to say, haha, trick question. You almost got me. That's Hunter Biden's side piece. I'm sorry. That would be my answer.
Disagreeing with others on these minor details can not only be explained, it is to be expected.
I'm just not sure if that didn't sound like one big contradiction. How do you start with Brian is telling the truth? There was no CPR. And then he's like, I gave CPR. I gave the CPR for 30 seconds. And Brian was right there, but he was like talking or something. Like, I think hopefully I get a jury of my peers, because I feel like that's a contradiction. I think that makes people think that people are lying. And you just keep describing as a minor detail. Providing life-saving CPR to someone is not what most would describe as a minor detail, right? Minor detail would be like you remembered Justin Davis, who was driving, as wearing a blue shirt, but it turns out he was wearing a teal shirt. That's a minor detail. Why would you be focused on that? CPR, you're saying that you moved Charlie's body into the CPR position and provided 30 seconds of CPR, and Brian Harpole didn't notice because he was distracted by what? He told us he just got to work the whole time. That was his number one focus. What was he distracted by in the car while he was trying to perform life-saving measures that he just completely missed you having to? By the way, I still don't really understand how you could get Charlie into the CPR position, because we were told the door was open because Charlie's legs were too long. You do have to have someone flat to conduct CPR. How did he miss you moving the body into that position, getting on top of him and providing CPR? I know you're really passionate, but I also think you're full of shit. So there's that. I think your definition.
Well, at least we know Candace doesn't have to worry about catching a defamation suit for saying that Frank Turek is full of shit, right? I fucking dare him to come out with that one. Holy shit. Yo. Oh my God. I'm going to keep going.
It's not a contradiction is inaccurate. And I don't think it is a contradiction, Frank. I think it's a lie. And you're now conceding that you lied, or Brian lied. I don't know who lied. And now you're using, he has a lawsuit, so he can't speak about it. Why can't you speak about, you just spoke for 3 hours on the Shawn Ryan show. Why would the lawsuit prevent you from speaking out? In fact, you're verifying my claims in the lawsuit. Frank, genius. Everything's so spotty. You would think that that would be a crucial detail that no one would forget on that journey, a short journey to the hospital. Now, okay, of course, everyone is forgetting. That's kind of been a point here. A regular fixture is everybody is somehow, I don't know, developing amnesia. And Blake Neff, man, this guy. Blake Neff doesn't remember what city at first. He says he stayed in Orem. Then he has another discussion and changes his mind and says that they stayed in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is the true event, true version of events. The entire Turning Point team stayed in Salt Lake City, but Blake does not remember what hotel they stayed in. It's a lot. I want you to hear him in his own words. Take a listen.
The first time I talked to you, you said you spent the night in Orem. You stayed at a hotel. You may have left the hotel once for food.
Yeah,
but now you're saying you were in Salt Lake. So you're
no,
good.
I'm not. Now I'm saying I don't know the exact context, but my guess is someone said like, "Did you stay in Orem that night?"
And for those of you that are new members, because I know I've gotten a lot of new members this week, I covered this X Spaces in my members only live. You'll see the thumbnail. It's got a bunch of other creators that were in this X Space on it. And yeah, it's a good live. The Spaces was like 6 hours. I didn't cover the whole 6 hours, obviously, but I tried to get like the juiciest 3 hours or so.
I interpreted it as, did you stay in Utah that night, as opposed to returning to Phoenix where I live? And I stayed in Utah that night, and I stayed basically in the same place everyone else stayed. We were all in, to my knowledge, the same hotel, and it was, I think, in Salt Lake.
What hotel was it?
I don't remember.
He doesn't remember. Doesn't remember. By the way, that's quite a scene to have all of Turning Point USA employees that were there that day, plus Erica Kirk, and I'm assuming a very large security apparatus. I am trying to put the pieces together of why they stayed at Salt Lake at all, stayed in Salt Lake at all, while Charlie was in Orem, in Provo. I don't understand why you would make a journey 50 miles out. And that, by the way, that's confirmed on the basis of where they bought clothes, that they decided to drive out, stay at a hotel. Provo's a pretty big city. I would imagine you would want to stay close to Charlie. I don't know why they were flying into Salt Lake for this event, full stop, because Blake didn't go, but he flew with Charlie, but we know that he didn't go. And other Turning Point staffers also flew into Salt Lake City, people who did not go to Charlie's restaurantology event. Why? Why was Salt Lake the hub? I'm trying to figure that out. Why were we stationed at Salt Lake? There may be a viable explanation. Maybe it's because they were anticipating that the vice president was going to fly in, and maybe that was nearer to where he was going to fly in. I don't know. I'd like to know, and I'd like to help Blake. I think that that's really sad.
Let's
that
skip
he
to
can't
the
remember
Andrew
details.
Colbert part.
I mean, we already knew who he was. We knew. I told you he was directing all this behind the scenes, the lies, the attacks, and we got a gift in the form of him firing the person who worked under him. So I was able to confirm even more lies that Andrew Colbert was telling to the public. But I guess that's his job. He thinks it's his job to lie, but he's crashing out in a way that it's difficult. He's almost like a phase of delusion. He's telling me that his show's doing great, my show's crashing. My metrics are down. I'm on my way down. I don't even know what's happening, but a strange little thing took place where his brother came to his defense over Fort Huachuca. Again, they always pick these obscure things. No one has ever accused Andrew Colbert as being at Fort Huachuca. No one ever accused his brother, to my knowledge, but they always find an obscure account that says something and then they respond to it. And this time a lieutenant colonel. These men are like in their 40s and 50s. Like, why is your brother out here defending you on X? He's a lieutenant colonel. What are we paying these people to do? I want a tax refund on the basis of how people in our government are behaving over the last year. Anyways, this is what his brother, Lieutenant Lieutenant Colonel Colvett wrote on X. He said, I am his only brother. And I never worked at Fort Huachuca. I only went there once for a 3-day training day. I don't know what that stands for. And 2 of those days were travel days as I visited my military police unit training with the base military police from Huachuca. I'm sorry if you've heard different. You were sadly misinformed. Tucson seems wonderful. The people were great, and Tombstone is worth the visit if you get the chance. Have an amazingly blessed day. P.S. I wish they had named it some fort in Tucson. It'd be so much easier to know how to pronounce and spell it correctly. And then Andrew chimes in like, yeah, I can't even say it. They can't even like pronounce it. It's like, what are you guys talking about? No one knows about this fort. I was there for a 3-day training sesh, but my bro and me, like, okay, what are we doing here? Tagging the homies in, I'm an adult woman. I'm not tagging my big sister into an X feed to comment on a non-existent scandal. I do think that Andrew has heard of Fort Huachuca. I do, just by the nature of where he lives, by the nature of what Erica's family does, what his family does. He's heard of Fort Huachuca. It wasn't some fort. I think he's lying through his teeth about that. Oh, some fort, ho ho. No one's heard of this. All of us are involved in the military and we live in Arizona, but we just weren't aware of this massive intel base, which directs what's going on at the border, joint task force at the border since forever. We just didn't know that was right there. Yeah, my cousin's in the military, my brother's in the military, but we genuinely had never heard of this fort. And we do wish it was like, guys, from the outside looking in, we're kind of thinking that you're a bit nervous. This does not look like calm and collected. All right. When you got to get your big brother to come out here and defend you on these streets, it doesn't look good. So I think this crash out has been continuing. Anyway, we're going to take a brief break and we'll be right back to read some of your comments. All right, you guys, it is no secret that everything is starting to feel
up. Did you guys see the new Palm Beach Peep video that's going viral? Let's see this one. I didn't see it yet. Apparently, he was driving and somebody called him Jeffrey and he answered. Let's see this one. Why does it always do that? That's annoying.
That's Palm Beach Pete. Hold on.
It's got to be a setup.
Jeffrey.
Palm Beach Pete.
Yeah, that's got to be staged.
Hold on. Jeffrey.
Palm Beach Pete.
Yeah. I know a lot of people out there still think that that's him, but there's no way. That one I don't believe. Not even a little bit. It's fucking too much. Let's see what else we got. Oh,
NGOs.
Oh man, Andrew Tate.
My son was born black, and my
What the hell?
husband's family accused me.
Every time. Andrew Tate just keeps freaking getting himself getting in trouble. I don't even want to say getting himself in trouble. He's saying that him and his brother are set up, that they keep getting set up. And it's because they don't play ball. I don't know. I've heard a lot of different mixed theories on these guys. I'm never going to assume somebody's guilt without having some real evidence. I definitely don't agree with everything that they have said and do, though. But let's see what he had to say here.
NGO's name is La Strada. La Strada. La Strada paid girl A in advance before she went to Romania. La Strada are paying for her current legal defense. After she accused us 5 days in Romania, she left Romania and went to the south of France. Her ticket to the south of France and the hotel she stayed in was paid for by La Strada. La Strada is a NGO which is anti-human trafficking. So why are they paying people in advance and sending them to make human trafficking accusations? Because the media doesn't report on what has happened. It softens you up for what was going to happen. NGOs don't fix problems that they don't create. It's all a setup. Who funds Lestrada? A bunch of other NGOs. Who funds those NGOs? USAID. The same fucking Soros deep left matrix bullshit as everything else. I'll let someone else do the deep dive on the funding of these fucking corrupt clowns. The point is, they set me up, and now they're about to lose.
What do you guys think? You think Andrew Tate got set up? Or you think it's something else going on there? Oh, you know what I did want to watch? I wanted to watch the Julian Dory Joe Kent interview.
Hello.
What do you guys think? I think it's 4 hours. We're definitely not watching the whole thing. That's let's see. Start with Iran. Guys, put a 1 in the chat if you want to watch a little of the Joe Kent Julian Dory interview, or if you want to do something else, I'm fine with that too. But you gotta give me something to work with here. I really don't care. I got a little bit more time. I'm game for anything. Someone says, oh, they openly admitted to being traffickers. Why would they do that? That would be dumb. All right, let's go.
They just like call you up and be like, "Yeah."
Well, they have ways. They have ways of making it very clear.
What are these ways, Joe?
They back channels, and so we talked to the Qataris, we talked to other folks. Iraq, I mean, the Iraqi government. Iraq is literally in the middle between us and Iran, and so they talk to kind of everybody, which is a good thing. It's a good ally to have there because they can talk to the Iranians. So we knew through multiple different streams, essentially, that the Iranians were withholding their proxies. Now there was a big debate. Whether or not Iran could withhold its proxies, like do all the different proxies that have been attacking Americans since October 7th, do they listen when Tehran calls? That was a big debate that we had. I was skeptical. I was like, I don't know.
This is a good take. I can't disagree with you with this one. Tate is guilty of debasement of culture and corrupting the minds of huge numbers of young men. Yeah, I mean, listen, I've always been one that believes that you should not only respect but cherish your women. I've never viewed women as objects or disposable. I'm not gonna say any more than that.
No, man, I think these guys are going to keep attacking us. I think they're going to test us. I think this is going to be, a big contest of which one of these little proxy groups is the biggest dog on the block. That didn't happen. The Iranians held them back. And so even going in all through the winter and the spring, while Steve Witkoff was engaged in negotiations with the Iranians, I kept waiting. I was like, these guys are going to hit us at some point. And they didn't. They were able to actually hold back their proxies. This showed that they were serious about the negotiations process because they knew that if they're going to start attacking our bases again, that they would have to deal with Trump.
Just to be clear, the winter and spring you're referring to is this 25 and 26?
Yeah, 2025.
Meaning not before the 12-day war.
Just in the lead up to the 12-day war.
So it was that
it
one.
Was,
so
yeah,
early
it was.
2025.
Yeah,
so you saw that they pulled off. So this is right when you're getting into office. It's like, I would imagine, when did you get confirmed? Beginning of February?
So I didn't get confirmed officially until August, but I was working as DNI Gabbard's chief of staff.
Oh, so they waited a long time. I didn't know that.
I had my hearing. I had my hearing in April, and then they wait. It takes a while for if you're not in the primary cabinet, they make you wait.
You think we could move this shit a little faster in the government, but they never.
They got things to do in the Senate, I guess.
So they named you the chief of staff then at the time, which I guess that like kind of effectively like waves you into doing a lot of the same things you were going to be doing.
Yeah. So after Trump won the election in 24 and I lost my congressional race, I jumped in on Tulsi's team as part of the transition. So led ODNI transition. There's a portion where the president's been elected, but he hasn't come into office. So the whole transition period, I was representing ODNI, interacting with the ODNI staff. And then when we came in, even before she was confirmed, there was about 5 of us that came in on the landing team on day 1. So President Trump swears in and we came in and we swore in at ODNI to kind of start running the framework there for her. So that was my role basically up until I was confirmed.
Got it. So a little side tangent here, but what was your relationship previously with Tulsi before the 2024 election?
So we have some mutual friends from the military, and then obviously mutual friends from politics and similar views. She came out to Washington State and helped campaign with me in 2022. And then when the Ukraine war was kicking off, her and I were kind of like on Tucker's show all the time. So Tucker introduced us, but at the same time, she had just gotten back from a deployment to the Horn of Africa, where she was embedded with special forces. So she was actually with a special forces group and a couple of guys I knew that connected us as well.
In the Horn of Africa.
Oh, let's see what he says about.
There's multiple breaches of his.
I want to see what he says about Butler. This got to be good. Let's see.
There's multiple public breaches of his security that happened. There's the stoppage at the UN on the escalator. There's the armed police officer who comes up and shakes his hand, who wasn't part of the president's detail, who everyone's like, have the guy have a gun, get in here. Well, he put on a cop uniform. Well, he was a cop, but he walked in and did it, and then it made the paper, and it was, a huge embarrassment. And then you have the restaurant in Washington, D.C., when Trump and the cabinet are going to go out and show how safe Washington, D.C. is. Code Pink reserves a table right next to him. They wait for the president to come in, and they jump up and do their Code Pink thing where they yell at him or whatever. It's just Code Pink. It was harmless, but still, it shows that someone got the president's itinerary and they knew exactly where he was going to be sitting. So between the breaches of the security, between the assassination attempts, what does that tell the president? If you have Donald Trump's mind where you can take in a large amount of data, that lets you know that you're not safe. That like the people that are around you, you're the most powerful man in the world. They can't keep you safe. He's got a lot of kids. He's got a lot of grandkids who I think he does love dearly. And I think he is concerned for them. It also says that, okay, they can't be kept safe either. Then in the interim period between Operation Midnight Hammer, when Trump tried to get us out of this disaster that the Israelis attempted to get us into, and what happened in February where the war restarts in September, you have one of the most vocal advocates against the Iran war, who was in the Oval Office advocating against the Iran war in the lead up to Midnight Hammer, Charlie Kirk, also publicly assassinated. Yeah. Now, we can talk about any of the, I don't know if there was potential linkage there. I would say what it is right now.
But you were stopped from looking into that.
We were stopped from looking into it. But if you put all those on a timeline and you say, what else could be affecting the president that I'm looking at right now? You have to factor that in. If this was a foreign country and I was looking at it from an intelligence perspective, I would have to factor all that in. Now with Butler happened obviously under the Biden administration. When we came in January of 2025, there was a lot of us who were eager to get to the bottom of lots of things that happened during the Biden administration. Butler was like top on my list. It was top on lots of people's lists. And so I came in, I said, all right, let's figure out what happened with Butler, because what happened on the ground didn't make sense. But then there's also been a bunch of innuendo where people said Iran tried to kill the president. So I said, okay, I want to get to the bottom of this. And I want to figure out if Iran had anything to do with trying to kill the president for, killing, at the time, it was vengeance for killing Qasem Soleimani. So I said, when I came back in from the intelligence community perspective, I said, show me all the intelligence that we have on assassination attempts against President Trump, Iranian involvement. When I got into the Butler file, this wasn't publicly disclosed at the time. This is all out in the public sphere now. There's a guy named Asif Merchant. He was just tried in New York. He's a Pakistani national who ostensibly was recruited by the Iranians to come here to America and find a way to kill President Trump. Merchant is arrested 2 days before Butler. Right before he's arrested, he's in a hotel room and he hires a guy who he says is a sniper. And he reports back up to the Iranians, I've got a sniper, and that's how I'm going to kill President Trump at one of his rallies. So I read this and I'm like, well, what happened to the sniper? We know what happened to Merchant. I got it. He's in jail. What happened to the sniper? It's, I have to do some asking around. FBI comes back and they say, well, don't worry about that guy. He's one of our informants. And okay, I'm like, all right, he's one of your informants, huh? Okay.
The sniper.
Because he was never a sniper. He wasn't a sniper. He basically just kind of tricked Merchant into saying, sniper. Merchant doesn't seem to be the sharpest tool in the shed.
Yeah. So that's the guy they picked to.
Yeah. So Merchant's in jail. I said, okay, well, I've ran a lot of sources in my time overseas. And when you start hiring a source to go hire people, things get out of control really quick. It's already hard enough to control a source that you're not with all the time. But when the source starts hiring what we call sub-sources, where it's like, you go hire your buddy, but I only talk to you, things get pretty crazy pretty quickly. So I asked the obvious question, like, okay, so that guy was your CHS. Number one, are you sure that Merchant wasn't talking to other people and he didn't hire other snipers? Have we done the proper analysis to see if there was any linkage between anyone in Butler, Pennsylvania, Thomas Crooks, and anybody else that Merchant interacted with? we got blocked, got, crickets on that one, like no answers whatsoever, nothing to see here. If you keep investigating, you keep asking questions, you're going to mess up the trial that's ongoing with Marshawn. That's what the FBI always says. So I said, okay, fine. Crooks's devices, his computer, his cell phone, etc. He's an American citizen. So normally the intelligence community wouldn't get to look at that, but he's dead. There's no Fourth Amendment issues. Let's take a look at his devices and let's see if he was talking to anybody internationally, if there's any international ties here whatsoever. For the first couple of months, we were told no one can get into his devices. He's got encryption on them. I said, okay, well, if the FBI can't get into his devices, let's just open it up to the broader community because we've got.
Do you guys believe that for 1 second, that the FBI wasn't able to get into Thomas Crook's devices? I don't know. Like, I'm not the most tech savvy individual, but I find it very, very hard to believe that the FBI wouldn't have the capabilities, the tech, somebody in the staff with the know-how to get into any device, especially just a U.S. citizen. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like that they probably have a freaking list of like 50 different hackers that they have charged or threatened to charge with crimes for hacking that alone that should be on call for these types of situations. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't buy that for 1 second.
At the NSA, we've got a huge intelligence community. I think someone's going to be able to get into those devices. Crickets. Fast forward later on, and I actually meet with Dan Bongino, and I asked Dan, "Did you guys get into the devices?" And Dan says, "Yeah, we got into the devices." So, okay, great. Like he's like, "Well, there's nothing there."
Nothing there.
I'm like, "There's nothing there." Okay.
I love this guy.
I'm like, if there's nothing there, let's just let us still do our due diligence. Can we at least see, what's in the devices, and maybe there's, potentially foreign ties. If not, fine, but at least we've done our due diligence. Dan says, he'll see what he can do about it.
Yeah.
I also said, Dan, can we see the brief that you guys showed the president?
When Dan Bongino was telling Joe Kent that they got into the devices and there was nothing there, how much you want to bet that there was a trust me, bro, somewhere in that conversation? I mean, there just had to be, right? There just had to be. Like, could you picture that conversation? Like Joe Kent, like, what do you mean there's nothing there? And you got fucking Dan Bongino. Trust me, bro. There's nothing there. If there was, we would tell you. I mean, don't you think we would tell you? Trust me, bro. Like, yo, it's fucking insane. It's insane. These people think we're a bunch of idiots.
Because the president publicly had said he was satisfied with Butler. Later on, behind closed doors, the president said, at least around me, that he wasn't satisfied.
Yeah, we told you that.
With it. Yeah. Yeah. And then later on, he said to Tucker much later, like a couple months later on, that he was satisfied. So that's what, it's hard to peg where all these different things are on the
I'm saying one thing publicly and another thing privately.
Right.
I'm going to believe the private thing almost every time.
Yep. And then a couple months later, and this is like in, I think, August, Dan and I met, or maybe September. Right after that, I think shortly thereafter, that's when Tucker disclosed his investigative journalist had found Crooks's online profile. And Crooks had a prolific online profile to include interacting with a guy from, I believe it's called the Nordic Resistance Front. I'm not going to try and say his name. It's like a white nationalist group that is a specially designated global terrorist organization by the U.S. So we are monitoring these people. Thomas Crooks in, I think, 2020, 2021 was in touch with this group. And so to think that he wasn't on our radar in some way, shape, or form, I kind of have a hard time believing that. Can't prove it. But for a while there, we said that like there's nothing there. But then Tucker's investigative journalist does, basic internet deep dive researches that most private investigators are capable of doing. And he finds those actual foreign ties. And so again, we still don't know what happened with Thomas Crooks, who he was linked to. And then at the same time, the investigation of what took place on the ground, that wasn't my purview, but that was like a DHS purview. Right. The DHS Inspector General, also another Trump appointee, he goes in, he starts wanting to run down all the after actions reports. He wants to look into the actions the Secret Service took that day, what other federal agencies were involved, et cetera. He gets blocked from doing so as well. So, okay, that's a data point, like, well, what's going on there? Fast forward to October of 25, and I have the opportunity to share it because this isn't public yet. And I have an opportunity to share this with President Trump. And he says he's not satisfied with Butler. Like he didn't know that there was a CHS involved with the Merchant case, et cetera.
Without going into anything that, of course, would be privileged and like off the record with the sitting president of the United States. Was there any pickup that you got from it that he had continuing fears? Meaning, like, if this got looked into farther and got to some answers that maybe certain people didn't like, his life and people around him would be strongly in danger? Did you pick up on that at all?
No, I didn't. I mean, I don't think I would. I mean, the president's a pretty strong guy and he presents, a pretty strong persona. He just said that he because when you lay out the facts of Butler, like, how can you say you're satisfied with it? He's a smart guy.
Of course.
If you lay that out there, he's just like, yeah, I'm not satisfied with it.
I can't believe he doesn't tweet about it every day.
Yeah, that's the part that's off.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and now you see again, there's new intel, and this is technically unrelated to Butler, but there's new intel that, like, Trump has been warned by Israeli intelligence that Iran is trying to kill him. Again, it's the same intelligence that has selectively given us stuff that you've laid out that doesn't come to pass and hasn't for decades now at this point, for the most part, and they're running the same narrative on the place that they're upset that we're stopping the war against. And like, the other thing about Iran, great to criticize their regime and all that. And yes, they funded all these proxies. You fought against them. Like, they're not great. We know that. But they're not suicidal,
right?
In my opinion.
No.
They're fine with some of their people being suicidal. They'll celebrate the martyrs or blow themselves up any day. But, like, they want to exist. And they do know that a country like ours, if we were pissed off enough, has the ability to blow them off the map if we needed to. Not that that would be, like, publicly supported, but if they, human beings, if they got pissed enough, they could do it. So why on earth, number one, would they try to kill the sitting president? And number two, less explored question here, why didn't they do it while he was out of office for 4 years?
Yeah,
I had a better shot then.
Yeah. I mean, the Iranians, after Soleimani was killed, they publicly said that they were going to avenge Soleimani.
That actually makes a really good point, because if they wanted revenge on Trump for something he did during his first term, why would they wait until he has Secret Service detail again, or some level of Secret Service detail, when he's campaigning for his second term? Like, there's definitely a little window in there in between when they probably would have had a much easier time executing that plan if they wanted to. But again, you have to take the information for where it's coming from. And when it's coming from a source that's given us pretty bad intel time and time again, especially intel that serves their purpose and their agenda and not necessarily our country's best interest, at some point, you got to take it with kind of a grain of salt. But hold on, I'll be right back. I'll keep it playing, though.
I think they had to say a lot of that for domestic consumption. The actions we saw them take, like some of the plots that we saw, they were like pretty weak. They the Iranians are pretty. So since this war started, the Iranians are actually pretty capable. So then it comes down to, like, intent versus capability. Like, they had the capability, but they didn't necessarily have the intent. Now, fast forward to where we are now. We've killed the supreme leader. We've killed their head of state / the religious leaders. You now have the son, one of his first, I think, statements he's put out, not publicly, but he put out a written statement. I mean, they're talking about avenging, the Ayatollah. They're talking about going after Trump and members of his cabinet. So that, I think, we do have to take pretty seriously.
Sure.
Because we've basically made a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. In the lead up to killing him, there was threats here and there, but none of the plots ever turned out to be very seriously. And this is serious. And this is a problem that, we would always have with the Israelis. They would put something out, and then you'd have to put it in the context of, like, okay, well, the Israelis clearly, they're giving us this information. Some of it's probably true, but they're giving it to us because they want to influence us,
right,
as well as inform us. So
now you keep describing a lot of these different things today in different contexts as, like, data point. And you'd, like, click it and be like, okay. And then eventually, like, it added up so much across so many different things that you took the action you did in March and stepped aside. But when you get in there, and as you described it, like, your first priority was like, all right, let's look into Butler.
Yeah.
And then you start to do that, and you kind of get stonewalled everywhere you go. And you click that data point. I'm just trying to get into the psychology, because I'm not you, but, like, I'd just love to know how you were thinking. Is there do you go home one night, and it's not like you can discuss that because it's privileged information, but at least like go for a walk or like sit out on the back deck and say, wait a minute, what's up here? Like, are there moments like that?
Oh, lots. Yeah. And we had a pretty good team there in OD9 that came in with Tulsi. And so we talked about these things quite a bit because we were all working on them together of like, why, when we request this from our fellow Trump appointees over at the FBI, like, why aren't they looking for this stuff too? Like what's going on there? And there's still a lot that I don't know. And I genuinely, I have no idea why people took the actions they did. But a lot of it, I think, is it's really easy when you're on the outside to say like the system is bad, the system's messed up, and here's how it's messed up. It's really hard when you get on the inside to be part of that, to now be part of that system and to start going after that system, because the system has a way of embracing you and telling you that you're the greatest guy ever. And especially if you're going to lead an organization like the FBI, they've got a way of saying like, here's your security detail. We'll take you and you can go watch the guys clear the shoot house at the hostage rescue team range. And here's your private plane. You're one of us now. Like you run this entire thing, or you run the CIA. You're going to run all of our covert action. You're the head spy guy. And so then it's hard for you to turn around and be like, now I'm going to start going after where all the rot is here. These organizations are very good and very proficient, especially the intelligence agencies, at capturing their principles. And I think a lot of that is what has happened in the Trump administration. Unfortunately, a lot of people who I think were very, very good at pointing out why these agencies, these institutions were very flawed and working against the American people when they were on the outside, they got captured by them when they went on the inside.
Did you feel that happening to you at all too?
I mean, it's pretty easy. I mean, once you're like Senate confirmed, people call you sir, and like you've got your own office and you got a driver, and like it can totally. Had I not been in the military before and been in the CIA and spent so much time like as a guy on the ground, I could totally see it happening to me. I mean, because it doesn't happen with any nefarious intent, but it just happens because you get told like, hey, you're running this great organization, and like now you're the head guy that's part of the organization, and here's just what we do every day. And they keep you. I mean, principals can be kept very, very busy. If you don't take steps to like manage your own schedule, you will be managed. They will
feed them
give
shit,
you,
keep them in the dark.
All right, we're gonna check out one more segment, and then I'm actually gonna wrap it up because I'm not gonna lie, my back is killing me tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me though tonight. Tonight was like a chill, like more of like a chill, like just reactionary stream. Tomorrow I have something special for you guys. I will be live again at 10 p.m. Eastern time, and we're gonna do some more investigation type work. But this chapter, it says Mossad, CIA, and J.D. Vance. So I definitely want to hear what he has to say here. Let's check it out.
my country for 20 plus years, is that like pretty soon here, the whole bottom's going to fall out of this whole thing. Because at the end of the day, we have a pretty high trust society. But if people think like their votes don't matter, if they start thinking that like no matter who I vote for, I get another stupid war in the Middle East, inflation goes up even more, my intelligence agencies are spying on me and taking away my civil liberties, that is going to erode the entire system faster than the financial collapse we were just talking about.
He's a pretty smart guy, because that's exactly what I've been saying for the past 6 months. I mean, I've been saying it longer, but I've been saying for at least 6 months on the show, is that is exactly what's going on. A lot of, myself included, feels like our votes don't matter. Like, yeah, on certain issues it does, whether you vote Republican or Democrat. But all in all, when it comes to the big stuff, when it comes to big pharma, when it comes to the wars in the Middle East, when it comes to, these money management firms buying up all our lands, when it comes to inflation, these data centers and these tech companies just being allowed to just take all of our information, our metadata, it really doesn't seem to matter which party you vote for. It just doesn't. So good on him for pointing that out.
Yeah, and then they can't pay for groceries.
Yeah.
They're putting data centers everywhere for Peter Thiel,
And flock cameras so they can stalk us and tell us, this is because we need to win in AI. We need to monitor absolutely everything that you guys are doing. Like, I'm sorry, like I have a problem with that,
Of course. I'm glad you do.
I don't trust my government.
Now, to be a cynic for a minute, I don't like being a cynic. I'll admit, when it comes to the government, I'm a bit of a cynic though. You talk about like, if we get another shot at this, whoever it is, we got to go in there and do it right. And you laid out some of the ways you would do that. But there's a lot of people out there thinking right now, regardless of Donald Trump's like politics, they're going, well, technically this was the outsider.
Yeah.
This was, the guy who was like, I'm self-funding my campaign and all that, who, was coming in and was going to drain the swamp and was going to put people like you in charge and stuff and support them, even when it was some points maybe they didn't want to hear. And yet here we sit, and it appears to be the opposite in a lot of ways. Could you see why people out there are like, Joe, that's an amazing idea, and I believe you want to do it, but that's not going to happen?
Oh no, I totally get that, and that's another thing that I'm. The younger generation is very informed, and I love the way they think. My fear with the younger generation is that they're going to say like, yeah, I tried that in 24 and I got screwed.
Right.
And so I'm just not going to participate anymore. Or they're going to go completely the other direction, and they're going to go with one of the more socialist leaning candidates and say like, okay, like let's actually try that now. So I think there is a pathway where we could get another shot at this, but I do think we have to keep the scope very, very narrow. And a lot of it is going to be involved in educating the people on, some of the reasons why I think Trump went off the rails. A lot of it is money. I mean, he to a certain, you can't say that over $200 million from Miriam Adelson,
232,
didn't influence him. And that's just her. I mean, that doesn't include the rest of the pro-Israel apparatus. So we have to say like, hey, sometimes these candidates aren't going to have as much money as the next guy, but we've got to be able to either through small dollar donors, raise the money ourselves, or just be willing to have a true grassroots campaign and support people who say, and that we can check in on, that they're just simply not taking the money. I think that's going to be a huge part of it.
Yeah. Now, another thing that's come up a lot that I don't know what to think, because it's just like kind of all over the place, is like the relationship intelligence community wise between the United States and Israel. And obviously this is all now top of mind with Section 219 and all that stuff potentially going through, which we can talk about. But what's always been interesting to me is any intelligence guy I've talked to, and I'm going to put this on a scale of Andrew Bustamante to John Kiriakou, from one end of the spectrum to the other. Whenever I have asked them off camera, and then eventually it's been on camera too, about their relationship with Israeli intelligence, I have never heard a positive word in my life from any of them.
Yeah.
And it is people I've talked to before that haven't been on the podcast, people that have been on the podcast who are in other agencies as well. There seems to be a unanimous consideration that they are fucking annoyed. And so that's different. that's different than the diplomatic relationships we see in, say, Congress and Senate and, you know, where there's politics and stuff like that. But you see a lot of this thing online where people are like, well, CIA and Mossad are one and the same. And I guess I'm open to the argument, but how can it be that way when so many people there, at least behind, you know, maybe publicly they say one thing, but behind the scenes, you know, there seems to be a lot of disagreement there. So maybe the better way to ask it is, as someone who now lived in the intelligence apparatus, did you find that there was a different opinion among a large group of people within the intelligence agencies about our relationship with Israeli and specifically with their intelligence agencies?
Yeah, I mean, at the ground, like operational level, I mean, what you described is pretty accurate. I think most of us, though, especially if you're more of a special operations guy, we have a lot of respect for the Mossad. I mean, the operations that those guys can carry out, the target assassinations, the way that they're able to run proxies, support agents, what they did in the early phases of the 12-Day War, very impressive. That's stuff that like we aspire to do in some theaters and we just haven't been able to do. Like they're good at what they do. So there is a healthy respect there. However, if you work with them for a while, there does come an annoyance where, you know, a lot of partners that we work with, they will kind of ask us constantly for things, which is to be expected. But they still are deferential to us in the sense they know that we're the world's most powerful nation and we're funding them and they need it more than we need them. With the Israelis, you don't get that. With the Israelis, best case, they'll shoot you straight like a peer. But a lot of times there's an entitlement that comes with that of like, you know, you guys are going to end up doing this anyways. And a lot of times they end up being right because the problem is why.
Yo, could you imagine the balls? Could you imagine the balls of any foreign nation going back and forth with U.S. intelligence or any U.S. elected officials and then telling them like, yeah, you could say no, but you're going to end up doing it anyway. It's like, you already know. Might as well just do it now. It's like, yo, Get the fuck out of here.
People will say the CIA and the Mossad are joined at the hip because the CIA director in a lot of cases will end up being, it's a political appointee chosen by the president. The president needs to show the donors that he's going to put one of their guys in there. I mean, at the beginning of this administration, you had the head of AIPAC bragging on camera
About Ratcliffe.
about Ratcliffe and about a guy who I like, Mike Waltz, being the national security advisor. So if you can short circuit that system, I think the way that you put stopgaps in there is you grab guys that have been out in the field who, you know, the president needs to feel that he politically aligns with them, that he's one of their guys, but that's who needs to be in charge of these organizations, as opposed to the guy who owes his political career to AIPAC, who then is a favor to the donor that donated to President Trump to be in charge of one of the intelligence agencies. That's how you sever that joint at the hip. And then we can start treating the Israelis like any other liaison partner. Like some things are good, some things are bad. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. This is a good relationship. I think we're just so far removed from that with the Israelis.
Yeah, we might have to pick up where we left off on this one soon. Maybe I'll cover this more on the next members only live. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a members only live tomorrow. I think I'm just going to do the regular show at 10 p.m. because I still have some work to do for getting that episode together. That's why tonight was more of just like a hangout type episode. But Wednesday, I have something else set up for Wednesday. And after Wednesday's show, Wednesday's public show will probably be a little shorter. And then I'll do a members only live late night on Wednesday. So you guys know. And also, real quick, before we wrap this up, I just want to let you guys know, especially for those of you that are newer to the channel, that I got my merch shop all set back up. Now, the merch shop has been set up, but I handle all the merch myself. And for a little while, I was just a little too busy to be dealing with it, so I wasn't promoting it. But if you guys want another way to support the channel, you just go to RealBayes.com. Sweatpants. I know, you know, hoodie season's coming. It's still summer. Which is another reason why, because most of the merch was hoodies. But I got sweatpants, sweatshirts, t-shirts. You can check out the shop right now. I'm also going to be uploading some new merch next week. There's going to be a whole lot more coming up. I'm working on designs and logos and whatnot. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. If you guys want to shop tonight, I will give you guys a promo code. Promo code's free speech. And you'll get 30% off. That is the Club Vatra discount. If you guys are not familiar with that, I can actually show you that right now, real quick before I go. Club Vatra was created by Danks, and this is just another way to support content creators. Now, until now, you see you got Danks, Jesse on Fire, American Discourse News. You got Jen from Against My Better Judgment. And you've got me, of course, RealBayes. Now, until now, I only had 3 monthly tiers. But what I've done is I have an access tier. It's a one-time $20, and you get access to the Discord. You're in there for good. Be a part of the team. Heads up. You get a one-time voucher for the 30% off on any order. Of course, you know, I do those from time to time anyway, though, so that doesn't need to be a major incentive. And Thursday at 1 p.m., I'm going to be doing a live stream on the Discord, and I'm going to be bringing everybody up, well, anybody who wants to, on the stage. So we're going to have a full panel. I might have another creator or two on there. No promises. I'm talking to a couple of people. But this is going to be an opportunity for you guys to hang out with me in a more formal setting. You could do it either video or just voice chat, and I'll be on there for a couple hours. I'll probably be on there from 1 p.m. Eastern time to 4 p.m. Eastern time, and I plan on doing that at least once a month. I'll probably do one video chat, maybe 2, and then I plan on doing weekly calls. So that's if you guys are interested, of course, you know, and of course, become a member. I'm really pushing the YouTube memberships. I'm going to be doing a lot of lives. A lot of my older content is going to be moved to the members only, and I'm going to start doing some more custom videos. And when I start doing my documentaries and pumping them out, they will be members exclusive first for the first week or two before I move them onto the public setting. So that's that. Those are some of my plans. Those are other ways you could support the channel. Again, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I always do. It's always a lot of fun. I'm going to go lay down. I'm probably going to sleep on my floor tonight because my back is just really jacked up right now. And I got a long week of streaming, so I want to be ready for that. But thanks again, guys. I really appreciate all of you. And like I always say, be kind, be grateful, do something nice for somebody. And I will see you guys tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Have a great night.